they reached out again. They got everybody, they got back with them. She came in and did her part, right? And did put her vocal on there. And then they said that then they were talking about it being the first single from the album.
Yeah.
And so when it was the single, I said, okay, well that means it's going to be a video. And so we can bring Jeff in. And
Mm.
I'm thinking in my mind, Shalamar reunion. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
Hype Williams
Yeah, like
was
Hype was the biggest the music
yeah,
video director at the
he
time.
was directing the video. He was directing the video. So there was this big warehouse that they had. And so like Jeff came in, and the first time we'd seen each other in 3, 4 years, something, we sitting, we're talking, hashing out stuff, and figure, well, why did we break up and blah blah blah, and all that kind of stuff. And we were talking for about an hour or so, and then Hype comes in and he says, I just got off the phone with Jody and her people, and she refuses to come down here and shoot with you guys.
Oh.
Can you
Hi.
hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. What's up, man?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you. I'm doing
Good,
well.
good. How you say your name?
Namdi.
Nambi.
Namdi.
Namdi.
Yes.
Okoye.
Okoye, yes.
Okoye. That your Yoruba?
Igbo.
Igbo. All right. Cool,
Yes.
cool.
I saw that you were in Abuja a couple of weeks or months ago.
Yeah, about a couple months or so ago. I got it was an amazing trip. It was the first time actually that as many times because I've been going to Africa since like 82, Started like first place we went was Lagos, Nigeria. And so, but and then from there to Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, South Africa, and places like that. But going this time to Abuja, because I always dug Abuja, it's Lagos is an experience, and you know what I'm saying,
Yeah. Yeah,
So
definitely.
Lagos is definitely an experience. Love the people there. Made great connections. Have made great, amazing, lasting connections there. But I always dug Abuja. It was like something about it that and going there this time, proved to be what I expected going there. And it was one of the first times to really connect with what's happening, there. I got my Yoruba name is I'm a wild. Oh man, good grief. Wait a minute. I got I'll think of it. I'll think of it.
That's
It's
fine.
fine.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
But I got my Yoruba name, so and then connected with a lot of people there. But I think the whole African and African American situation over here, we need to be
Yeah,
thinking and coming together
definitely.
because they're trying to do the same thing to them over to our people over there in Africa that they're trying to do here. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And we're all in this thing together, and I think I'm real proud of the cat Ibrahim Troy over there
Oh
and
yeah, yes,
his
yes.
and
Burkina
his
Faso. Yeah, Burkina
yeah,
Faso.
yeah, in his country, and the things, and and all of a sudden when the cat that's in charge over here started talking about Nigeria. I mean, I mean, what's going on, and that is not. I'm not condoning what's going on over there, but what's going on over there has been going on for a long time.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And so why, like a friend of mine used to say, you gotta watch with your third eye and listen with your third ear. You know what
that's
I'm
true.
saying? So, why now? Why all of a sudden now? Could it be the refinery situation that's happening
Yeah,
and expecting to, expand even more? So, but now it's like, really figuring out how to, keep everything right there. Because, you know, don't let me go on. I can
no,
go
no,
on
it's
and on
fine.
about
It's fine. And I think the reason I mention Abuja is because you posted on your Instagram being welcomed by a sort of a music band,
Mhm.
and
Oh
and
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and those are Igbo, so my kind of tribe that they were the people with the drums and they were dancing with the kind of
Hmm.
flute.
Yeah,
So and the sort of
and
the
the horse,
feather
yeah.
fan, yes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was amazing. It was great. Like I said, man, it was an experience. Jeffrey Daniel, lives over. He lives in Abuja,
Oh,
and
okay.
and he's been in Nigeria now for about 12 years or so, I
Oh,
think.
wow.
And so like he and Tunde Babaloa, he's our, he works with us in our organization over there when Shalamar goes over there, and they were, in charge of that whole thing. The whole, they wanted to make sure we had, we were greeted the right way and the whole thing, and it was amazing. They made it an amazing trip. It was great.
I think I remember it might have been 1990 or 91. There was a concert called Children of Africa. I don't know if you remember this. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think Kool and the Gang were part of it, and I believe you guys did perform in Nigeria, but I don't know if you've this is probably 89, 90.
Ooh,
If
long time
yeah, I
ago.
know it's a long, long, long time ago.
Yeah,
But I
yeah,
know
yeah,
that you
yeah.
guys have um, because I was born here in the UK. I was born in Liverpool,
Mm-hmm.
but then moved to Nigeria to go to boarding school, high school, and but I still always remember, the music being universally loved. So hence, I'm sure as you go back now, people will always still remember how big you guys were
Mm-hmm.
in the 80s and early 90s. That's why they still celebrate you guys now because it was I can still remember how
Yeah.
popular the music was.
Yeah, it was like 82 the first time we went over there. We played in Lagos. We played Lagos, we played Ife,
Okay.
and I think we played Harcourt or something
Patakot,
like that.
Patakot,
Yeah, yeah. I think we did
Patakot.
3 gigs over there at that time. And I mean, I still get, I still get every once occasional, Nigeria, letter from Nigeria. Even, I mean, it's like even letters now. It's like crazy. But I go on. I do this when we were into the pandemic, into the shutdown, and I'll still do it now. But I started this thing called FACC and life. And it was when we were all shut in. They said,
Yeah,
"Oh, y'all can't go anywhere,"
yeah,
So it was like, I said, okay, they want us to be, I can't do any gigs, I can't work and stuff, but that
yeah,
doesn't mean that I need to be a couch potato. You know what I'm saying? So I started getting out. Started getting out on my bike, and ride. There's a route that I can take around my house that's about 15, 20 miles or something like that. So I started hitting that route like on the daily. And then one day after a week or so, I stopped at the halfway mark, to chill for a minute. I found this halfway mark there. So I stopped and I said, well, let me get on my Facebook Live, because I had never done the Facebook Live thing
oh,
before. And I just, and about a week before, somebody had told me how to do it and the whole thing. And so I got on there, and when I got on there, it was like, all these people started flooding on, all the
yeah,
way across the country, people from Africa as well,
yeah,
people from the UK, and I just started having a conversation with them. Everybody was shut in, and everybody was like, I said, you got to get out. I mean, this was in March, around March, April or so of 2020.
yeah,
So the sun was out basically all over the country and basically everywhere else. So you could get out of your crib and get, the vitamin D. And I never understood why the governments all
yeah,
around the world didn't. emphasize more the
Hmm.
importance of your physical thing,
Yeah.
the importance of your immune system, the importance of getting out and getting some exercise and getting into that vitamin D that from the sun. That's the
Yeah.
most pure vitamin D you can get.
Yeah.
So like, but they never emphasize that. They emphasize, all this other stuff, all these, and I'm not anti-vaxxer by no means. I just got the other COVID vaccine a couple weeks ago
Oh,
because
wow.
I'm in way too many different environments,
Yeah. Yeah. You travel a lot. Yeah.
I need to protect myself as much as possible, and my body, did well with it, 5 years ago. So praise God, you know what I'm saying. So like, but I know some people are, and that's their right. They
Yeah.
have their right to feel the way they want to feel, but um, you know there's a lot of things that I believe vaccines are, have been really advantageous for us through the years. But getting out, I was emphasized. So FACC was fresh air, cardio, conversation, and dot dot dot. All that leads to life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because we can never move forward from where we are unless we understand each other, and the only way to understand each other is to have a conversation, and respectful, and respectful conversation.
Yeah.
It's like I used to tell my kids when they were growing up. I tell them, I said, look, you can come to me and talk to me about anything. I'm not, a 9 to 5 dad or whatever. And and my girl, I have three girls and a son. I have three girls and a son, and so my girls, it's like I'm telling them, I said, well, why would you go to your mom to find out about guys? You know what I'm saying? I'm a guy. You know what I'm saying? I know you got information firsthand right here. You know what I'm saying? So, communication is all about communication. So fresh air, which I would get out on my bike, or else I get out and I walk, and talk at the same time,
Yeah.
talking to people, and we have a conversation, and that we're doing cardio.
Yeah.
Cardio is important, build up your immune system, and then all that leads to longer life, man, and it's interesting life.
Yeah, I do remember, because I think you were less on Instagram during that time, and you were going
Mm.
live on Facebook. So I do
Yeah,
remember watching and following you during that time.
yeah, I was mainly on Facebook. It's like everybody says, "Oh man, you got to do,
Instagram
Instagram."
Live. Yeah, no,
Okay,
you were on Facebook. Yeah,
yeah, my people on Facebook.
but I did remember that you had. I think that somebody hack into your Facebook. Oops.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It was hacked into for about 6 months.
Wow.
And like the quiet as it's kept, it was really kind of a nice relief. Not
Oh, you see?
not to be like, okay, I gotta, I gotta connect, I gotta get on here, I gotta do this, can say, but it was a nice disconnect. And then, but the whole time I was working on, getting it back, of course. And thank goodness I got it back. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Yeah, because I do remember then seeing you. And so, because you were using this as such a tool, and then all of a
Hmm.
sudden it went away, and not
Hmm.
knowing, and I think Facebook, they weren't as cooperative, so you didn't even know if you're going to get it back. But if it
I
took,
mean, it was, I'm a Libra, okay? I'm a Libra. So like, I'm like looking at both, and I understand. You got 3 billion people
yeah,
on a situation. And it's like to service 3 billion people, but then the scales start tipping to the point where, but you created this thing.
yeah,
You created this thing, like, so therefore you should feel obligated to put some type of effort
mm,
forth to help, certain situations, and there's is too many because it was I couldn't go into a whole situation that it was a personal thing because too many people have been hacked and
Mm,
still are getting hacked now and can't get their page back, and there's no ready available customer service. Customer service, somebody told me customer service took a big hit during COVID and after COVID.
okay.
You know what I'm saying? Because
Okay.
so many people work remote. They started
Mm,
working remote. They started so many things shut down. People got jobs when they weren't really, qualified to get jobs because other
okay.
people weren't coming out. So customer service took a big hit then, but and we're feeling the remnants of it now.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know,
Oh,
yeah,
goodness. Well, you got your account back, and I
yeah.
always, but I always start off my interviews by because I do have a global audience, and I know many people will probably know you by your music, but it's always good to sort of get a sense of your origins, so like where you were born and raised.
Hmm.
Yeah. Oh, so
Oh,
where were you born and raised?
was born and raised. I was born and raised in Akron, Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah, Akron, Ohio.
Buckeye State. That the Buckeye?
Buckeye State. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Buckeye State in Ohio. I mean, Akron was an amazing place to grow up. It was like back then. Back then, it was considered the rubber capital of the world.
Oh,
There
wow.
was it was all the rubber factories were there. Every tire that was made throughout the country and sent overseas as well. A lot of places were made out of Akron, Ohio. It was called the rubber capital. Goodyear, Goodrich, Mohawk,
Oh,
Cyrene. Everybody was there. And so, you either did music, you worked in the rubber factory, or you were a pimp. You know what I'm saying? So some cats tried to do all three, you know what I'm saying, back
goodness.
then. But I was into the music and started out singing when I was 10 years old in the church. My mom was a major gospel promoter in the
Oh,
Akron, Cleveland, Canton area. And she would bring in people like James Cleveland,
wow.
Albertina Walker in the Caravans when Shirley Caesar was with them. You know what I'm
Wow.
saying?
Wow.
Pilgrim Jubilees, Five Blind Boys, Alabama, Soul
Wow.
Stir, everybody used to come through there. And so like once she and my dad, they put
Okay.
together the Hewitt Singers.
Oh,
It was me and my three of my sisters. I have four older sisters, and three of my sisters were, at any time, but it was three because we had three harmony. They would interact, with each other, but we were called the Hewitt Singers. So I was like 10 years old, right? And once my mom found out that, we could, she put it all together, and once we were in shape enough to perform, then nepotism was alive and well in our family. And so every show that she would bring in, we would of course open up the show. So I've
wow.
done shows from the time I was 10, 11, 12, 13, by around 14, towards the end of 14. That's when I went into the R&B situation there. And but by that time we were hot, man. We used to do, we'd open up on my mom's shows. We would do other shows as well. And then in the summertime when we get out of school, we would do like the Chitlin Circuit, gospel Chitlin Circuit, up and down the
Wow.
East Coast, Midwest, and all that. And it was amazing. We had a great time. And then like I said, at 14, 15, I went into the R&B thing because my sisters, I told them, I said, y'all not serious. They ain't serious. They ain't serious. It's like, they start getting married and stuff. And I'm
Okay.
like, yeah, what y'all doing? What about the group? And so like, but then, I went into the thing, and I remember because the Hewitt singers we were really popular, especially in that Ohio and
Mm.
um, adjoining states, Michigan and Illinois, up through Illinois, Indiana, and all that. And so, like, when I went into the R&B situation, and they started all the little churches there, because my mom also had this radio broadcast
Wow.
every Sunday morning. She was eventually inducted into the Ohio Radio Hall of Fame,
Oh my goodness.
and they used to call her the lady with the golden voice. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the lady with the golden voice, and Charlene Hewitt, and then her slot was like 7 to 8 or something every Sunday morning, and 7 to 8 or 7 to 9, whichever one they do the church announcements and all that kind of. She played the gospel music and stuff, and it was about a few weeks after I said that I was going into the R&B situation, right? 2, 3, or 4 weeks afterwards. And by that time, I mean, they were talking all kinds of church biddies. They were like, I can't believe Charlene will let her son go and sing the devil's music,
Devil's
devil's music. You
music.
know what I'm saying? And so like, it was like, there was this big thing going on, and I remember one Sunday morning after about 2 or 3, 4 weeks of all this stuff, I was laying in the bed and I turned my radio on because I was going to listen to, my mom's broadcast, and I turned it on and she started out this, ladies and gentlemen, now the lady with the golden voice. Yeah. She could speak. She had an amazing speaking voice, but
Wow.
she could not hold a note
Oh.
she could not hold a note in a bucket if she tried. She could not sing at all. But she had a great, amazing, amazing speaking voice. So she was a lady with the golden voice. And so she came on and she did her announcements and all that stuff. I'm kind of like drifting in and out of sleep listening. And then she said, "Now I want to talk about something that's been going on and blah 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 blah. Everybody has something to say about my son Howard. Going into the R&B field. And she said, I can't remember everything, but she started out. She said, first of all, the most the worst thing he could do is not use the gift that God gave him." You know and she said, I know how me and his dad and I have raised him. And then she went into the whole thing. I know that, we raised him with a foundation of God, Christ, the Holy Spirit, blah, 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 blah. She goes through this thing. And then she says, and so everybody, you know, eh, I hear what everybody's saying, but this is his decision, the whole thing, right? And
Wow.
then at the end, she says, and furthermore, she said, last thing I want to say is that if I love it, if I like it, you all should love it. You know what I'm saying? And so then it was like, but it was like that was my green light, sitting there
Wow.
at 14, about 15 years old at that time. And that was my thing. Okay, my mom, my dad are behind me. That's those are the things that you look at least I did when I was a
Mm.
kid like that. Okay, my approval,
Yeah.
your approval of your mom, your approval of your dad. And my back then, my whole situation with them was like, you keep your grades up,
Mm.
and you stay out of trouble. Okay, we know what you're doing out there. Man, I was doing cabarets starting at midnight, going from midnight to 6 in the morning when I was 15, 16 years old, you
Wow.
know,
Was
and we
that
would
le
play,
was
huh?
that legal?
I don't know. It was like whether it was or whether it wasn't. It was like, and we played clubs. We played me and my
Wow.
band. My band. After about a year, I put me and Marvin Burke and Ricky Fletcher, Ricky Parker, Byron Williams, and Kevin Tower. We all put together this group, and we called it Life. Lyfe. We
Wow.
spelled it Lyfe. So Life Jennings was not the first
Oh,
president to
okay. I
do
was
that,
gonna
you
say, like,
know.
was that his
No, this
dad?
was back in 1970, 70, 71. You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah, so we were like funky, man. We were everything Parliament Funkadelic put out, and we were on top of it. We were like
Wow.
playing, we were funky little, and we were all about 15, 16, 17 years old. But we would play these clubs. We played a club called Tropicana there and play this club called the Silver Leaf there in Ohio. We play other venues like the SKD Lounge up in Cleveland. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
And I can't tell you what the deal was. I know that we played, that's what we played, but we weren't into drinking.
yeah.
We weren't into that whole thing. We were into the music. And we used to play like the little at the I forget the name of the venues, but they used to have these things called the Pimp of the Year balls, you know, and the Mac of the Year balls, right? And we used to play all that stuff, but we never got into it. My thing with my parents was that as long as I kept my grades up, you know, in school, I was still in junior last part of junior high into high school. That's
Mm,
when you know I went over into the R&B situation, and so, like, you know, as long as I kept my grades up, stayed out of trouble, you know. And back then, it wasn't about guns and
mm.
pistols and all that. You know, we never saw. There was one time this girl pulled a gun out on a guy, and we
Oh,
like.
wow.
And you know, it was the only one time I remember we were standing out there watching this whole thing, me and my band, right? And she pulls out a gun and pow. So there was like maybe an opening about this big in the door from the street into the club, and I think all six of us got in through that opening, you know, no problem. We were in. Phew. But you know, we had a good time. Ohio, Akron really provided a place for me to explore my music at an early age with none of these vices that they have now,
Mm,
with none of these situations that they have now. You know, and I mean, it was an amazing place to grow up. We had there was a group there that we were like life band was like proteges of, and they were funky. It was like they were all like about 3, 4, 5 years older than us, right? But we were like, and they were called Revelation Funk, right?
wow.
And they had a keyboard player that played keyboards and sang background because he didn't consider himself a lead singer, you know. So he only sang backgrounds. His name was James Ingram.
Are you,
Okay.
whoa.
James, I met James when I was 15. He was about 18. And like we were like Revelation Funk were funky. I used to watch them. I used to go into my high school gymnasium for Battle of the Bands, and it would be
Mm,
Revelation Funk battling Ohio players, something like
wow.
that. With for a dollar 50, you can go see that. You know what I'm saying? And it was just we just had a great time. And but the only uh, drawback to Ohio was that, you know, there wasn't like in Detroit, you had Motown. You could see, okay, if I work hard here,
Yeah.
I could go and I can audition over here, maybe go blah, blah, blah. But Akron didn't have anything like that. And
Uh,
didn't have it. Cleveland didn't have anything. There weren't there. It was more industrial type towns and stuff. So.
so then I guess I feel the first question I had is why did you leave the gospel scene if that was sort of your upbringing and everything?
Yeah, it was just time to go. You know, there was no, you know, just set plan or whatever. It's just that at the time, you know what I believe, man? And when I look back on it, I think, you know, because I knew I wanted to experience life. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't want to experience life with like, I know, and I kind of I kind of knew that life, just life, not malicious life, not, you know, just life. You dig what I'm saying? It's like I wanted to experience it without the condemnation. You know
Okay.
what I'm saying? Although, when you believe and you're a believer, there is some accountability that you have
Mm,
to take. But at least I'm not damning it with through something that I love, which was my music.
mm,
You know what I'm saying? And this way I can praise God,
mm,
you know what I'm saying, and experience life at my pace, at the pace that I need to go in, and not, judged by some, like country club mentality a lot of times, you know what I'm
mm,
saying? So, and it can get complicated, but those are basically those are things I thought about even at an age of 14, 15, because I didn't, you know, early in performing, I've been a performing artist since I was 10.
mm,
So early in performing, I learned, you know, how music can change a person's trajectory of their life.
mm.
And I didn't know what it was all about at that time at 10, 11, 12 years old. Come on, man, 10, but I remember at 11, 12 years old, about 11 years old, because my mom was the one that literally kicked me out on stage because we were doing the show. We had doing the show, and we had rehearsed, and we rehearsed. Our first show, we get there. I'm 10 years old. I'm like, Mom, I don't know. I don't know. She said, boy, she said, you know what you rehearsed, and Mom, but Mom, I said, you getting, she literally put, you getting out there. So once I got out there, it was cool. I, went back to what I rehearsed, what we, the things as far as the music, the whole thing. And I remember at one point, my mom told me, she said, some months and months into it, she says, okay, when you see one of these sisters, rocking and crying, she said, you go and you sing to them, sing right to them, you know, and sing right to them. So I remember we were doing this show. It was in upper state New York, and it was an afternoon show at this church. And so we're on stage. We're doing this song. We did a rendition of the 23rd Psalm. We put a rendition of the 23rd Psalm together that we would do in our live show. So like we're doing it, and I'm singing it. Lord is my shepherd, and I care da da dee da da dee da da dee dee ba. He lifted my da da da. And then I have this high natural voice back
Mm.
then, 11 years old. It's like, and I'm walking up the aisle, one of the aisles, and I see this lady, she's like listening, and she can, she's crying. And I sit on the arm of the pew right in front of her, right? I sit right there, and I come with me. I mean, I'm into it, right? And I'm surely goodness and mercy will follow. You know, all that stuff, man. But it was higher. It was even higher, man. And then there was a part that was coming to the song that I knew I had to stand up to hit this note. So I stood up and started walking back towards the front of the church, and I hit that note. Boom! I hit it, and I heard this piercing scream behind me, and I turned around, and this lady's running down the aisle. And she grabs me in this bear hug because I was look about this big, right? He grabbed me in this bear hug, and she's like, ah, and I'm like still singing like that. And my sisters, even to this day, when we get together, they laugh about this to this day because it took my mom and the preacher to get that lady off of me. But it was a thing, and I'm like, wow, that's crazy. It was crazy, it was funny, it was up, but then, as the short years went on, and you start evaluating certain situations, you look at that and you say, man, there was something in that song that just hit a chord in that woman
Mm,
that just, I mean, made her feel, man, and it's just you can change, you know, people's people's look as far as what life
mm.
is about and feeling of life. And like I said, at 11, 12, 13 years old, I didn't know nothing about that. You know, but as I got older and and you look at things and you evaluate things and you look at because everything, you know, I even though I couldn't identify it at the time
Mm.
because of my age, I still had a sense of, man, this is like crazy. This is crazy, you know.
And so, is it when you did decide to go R&B that you thought I could make a living out of this, or was it still a nice hobby kind of situation?
Mm. I don't think it was ever really a hobby because we made money, back when I was
Okay,
11 years old. We got paid for,
okay.
I mean, I don't know how much it was. My mom and dad got it, and they gave me, I didn't need too much. All I needed was about, 50 cent to go to the candy store, you know what I'm saying? So but I mean, they got it wasn't a life-changing amount of money, but they, put it in, and we got paid for the gigs that we did. Except for probably not when we did my mom's gigs, we probably didn't get paid for that, you know.
Okay, okay,
But it was never really a hobby, but it was something, but it was yeah, for as far as the family situation was concerned, it was a responsibility too,
okay.
because we were the Hewlett singers. So, I remember playing Pee Wee football one time, and I was about 11 or so during I was going to play football during school, right? And Pee Wee football, and then we had to go somewhere for like 3 days. The group, the Hewitt singers, had to go somewhere for about 3 days. So I was gonna miss school, about 3 days of school, which meant I had to miss about 3 days of football practice, right?
Mm.
So, I went to Coach Gino. It was this big brother, man, Coach Gino. And I said, Coach Gino, I'm gonna miss 3 days of practice, blah, 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 blah. My family, the group is going up to, wherever. Hewitt, you got to figure out whether you want to do, you know, football or this music thing, you know. So I took off my helmet.
But how old were you?
I was about, like I said, I was probably about 11 or so,
Wow.
somewhere around there. And my shoulder pad, took off my shoulder pads. I said, okay, I gotta go. That was the last time I played football, so,
Oh my
but
goodness.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We had a
And
good time. We had a good time and
but was there no pressure when you did go R&B? People recognize. Can you imagine if you? Because I'm imagining being part of the Hewitt Singers in Ohio was almost like being a member of the Winans family, then going
mm,
and doing R&B. Was it to that? Was it known as? Were you known as a gospel group within the community, and then now you're going to sing secular on your own?
mm. Well, we know we were known as a gospel group within. We're not near what the Winans were doing. They were like, Winans, that was a whole nother, whoa, the Winans, you know what I'm
Okay,
saying?
okay,
So, they were recording. We never recorded. We never
okay,
we never recorded. We were basically, just through the shows that my mom brought in through her
okay.
connections and the connections up and down, like we played for Jesse Jackson, the Rainbow Coalition
Oh, okay.
situation, a couple times up in over in Chicago, and So, we did that kind of stuff through my mom's connections and stuff. But, the kind of like the underground situation,
Okay,
you know.
okay,
But
okay.
like I said, Chitlin Circuit and the whole thing. My brother-in-law played for one of the big touring groups out of DC. I think it was they were out of DC, I believe, the Highway QCs, you know. So
Okay.
once he and my sister got together, and then he came over, he started playing bass for us. And then he had his connections, all that stuff. So yeah, but then, we did when I went into the R&B situation, it was like, it was really on that, that core level as well, you know. But we did open up shows with the live band. We opened up shows for Kool and the Gang. We opened shows for the Barcades, Bobby Blue Bland, whole bunch of people back in the day.
But was there, did you see a path from being in Ohio and actually making it? Or
Being in Ohio,
yeah, then and thinking how do I take it to the next level? Or was it, were you making enough doing the gigs in Ohio that this was sufficient for you?
nah, we weren't making enough for that. It was like it was we had like sometimes we make about maybe 700 or 800 bucks a weekend, but the split between seven people, six or
Oh,
seven.
oh yeah, bands were big back then. Bands were
Yeah.
big.
Yeah, it was all about band situation back then. And there was,
Okay.
and so like, there was there's a whole nother thing that I went into, which is a whole nother chapter of my life for as far as certain things, because you're thinking about, and I was even back then I was a romantic, you know what I'm saying? Hold on a second, these people trying to, nah, it's crazy, but I was a romantic back then. My high school girlfriend and I were talking about, well, we were in love and we were gonna get married and stuff. And I'm like, man, I can't get married, making 100 bucks a weekend, 150 bucks a weekend. So I came out of long story short, I came out of high school and went and there was a section in the Air Force that was called Tops in Blue. You know what I'm saying? TOPS in blues, you know. And it was the entertainment part of
Oh.
of of the whole situation, and that's what I wanted to get into. I said, okay, I'll go in there, and my girlfriend and I, we can get married. I'll be in the Air Force. I'll make some money.
Uh,
I will learn more about music theory. I'm gonna learn more
uh,
about music situation. It won't be so far away from what I love. And like, went in there and found out before I got out of well, not found out, but realized before I got out of basic training that uh no, I can't do that. They're not gonna let me do that. I have been, because what it was the recruiting officer back in Akron. He says he says well, right now Tops in Blue is closed, but you know, I can get you in under electronics and you can go through basic training. You can go through basic training. And then when you get to your tech school, you just go to the headquarters and they wanna and tell them that you want to change your career field.
uh,
And no problem, you change your career field. About halfway through basic training, through some things that I started listening, because I always listen. And when I realized halfway through basic training, I think I've been like lied to. You know what I'm saying? So I get to Shepard Air Force Base, my tech school under electronics, and I get settled in after about a week or two, and I go to the headquarters and get in to talk to the base commander, the head guy, and said, I just want to talk to you about changing my career field. And he says, "Pardon me." Uh, I said I want to change my career field, and and then I explained the whole thing. The recruiting officer back in Akron, and he says, "Well, Airman, did you get anything in writing from this
Oh,
recruiting officer?" I said, "Sir, no, sir." And he said, "Well, Airman, you are in the United States Air Force for the next 4 years under electronics. Get the F out of my office."
oh goodness gracious.
Man, it was crazy. So, but as fate has it, like I said, that's a whole nother chapter, certain things. But I was supposed to do 4 years in there. I ended up 10 months, 11 days, and 4 hours, and got out. I got honorable discharge, and
Oh, what does that mean? Honorable
that
discharge?
well, honorable discharge that you were not thrown out of the Air Force.
Okay, okay, okay.
So is an honorable discharge is the opposite of a dishonorable discharge. You know what I'm saying? So it's like so I got out, unscathed to as far as certain things are concerned, as far as I was, and for a long time, I've never really thought, because it was such a short time in
Hmm.
my life. I always wondered, okay, what did this 10 months, 11 days, and 4 hours mean?
Four
What
hours.
was because I don't remember. I remember three people in that during that time. This cat Irons, who was like, he was airman. He was an airman along with me. We got to be pretty good friends. I remember going on. His people lived in Texas, right near the base, right near Shepherd Air Force Base. I remember watching the Ali Foreman fight
Wow.
at his people, his parents' house. I remember him. I remember my TI, the training instructor, Sergeant Douglas. It was his brother that, he was the hardest person in the world, excuse my language, in our asses the whole time. He was an asshole, excuse my language. But when we finished and we
Hmm.
graduated basic training, we had to stay in our barracks for about a day or two before we could go on to the next, situation.
Hmm.
And during that time, he started talking to us, and he was the nicest cat in the world.
Wow.
He said, "This my job was to get
Hmm.
you from, you know, civilian to military. That
Wow.
was his job." And then I remember Lieutenant Wayne Smith, who was the squadron commander of the squadron that I lived in they had me at Wordsmith Air Force Base, and he's the cat that I sat down and talked to, and told him we talked about, he said, "Man, what is it that you want to do?" He said, "Because you know you're not a screw up. People love you, people dig you, people like you.
Hmm.
You know." But he said, he's looking at my stuff, and he says, "Yeah, I can tell this is not the Air Force or military is not what what." And I told him, I said, man, I told him about the recruiting officer in Akron. And I told him about, the fact that I was supposed to, wanted to do the Tops and Blue thing. And I said, one night when you and your wife are sitting, and at that time it was midnight concert or something like that, and I forget, the things that were happening at that time, the music, TV shows. I said, one night when you guys are, I said, I want to be up there kicking. I said, that's
Wow.
what I want to do. I want to do music. And that's what I came in here to do. And, and I said, I don't think, it's not that I think that the military is bad. I said, I think it's just like a cup of coffee. It's for some people and it's not for other people.
Hmm.
I knew guys, there were guys in there that, If they weren't in there, they'd probably be dead or in jail. You know what I'm
Wow,
saying?
wow, wow.
And so it's not a bad thing. It's just
Not for you.
not for me. And man, 7 days after that conversation, 7 days, that's the number of completion, in the Bible. No,
Yeah,
seven. Seven
yes.
is the number of completion. 7 days later, I was out. Honorable discharge, full benefits, clear, done.
Could they have kept you? Could they have kept you?
They could have, but
Wow.
I could have been in there in the Air Force for 4 years, as an electrician.
Wow.
I'd be
Goodness. And you still remember that lieutenant?
Oh yeah, I tried to find him and I tried to find Sergeant Douglas, but I couldn't find them for some reason because, thank God they were instrumental in my life. I think when after I thought about what that period really meant, I think about, the time when I was in basic training. It was during the first week of basic training. And I still had my civilian goals. We hadn't even no, I think we had gotten the hair the buzz and everything by that time. But I went in, he called me into his office. Sergeant Douglas called me into his office. He says, he said, sit down, Aaron, everything, maggot, sit down, you know what I'm saying? Everything was like just degrading everything. And so he had my folder out, right? And so like, he said, sit down. So he said, I'm looking at your folder here, and I see that back in the world, that's what they say, back in the world. Said back in the world you were a singer, right? And you sang. And to myself, I'm saying, all right, here we go. Here go my perks, my perks. I got all through high school and the whole thing. Like I had all three lunch periods because I would do, like lunchtime shows and stuff at my high school, and so I'd have all three lunch breaks, perks, your little perks for Howard sings. That's what he does. Howard sings all through my life, right? I said, I'm sitting there. I said, okay, here come my perks. And he says, "Can I say this?
Yeah, yeah, yes.
Can I say okay?"
Yeah.
He says, "Well, I'm gonna tell you. If I hear one motherfucking note come out of your motherfucking mouth, I'm gonna stick my foot so far up your ass, blah 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 blah." And I was like, I, I was traumatized, man. I didn't hit a note that whole 6 weeks I was there and
Oh,
afterwards, because by that time I had been like, and I think when I look at that period, when I look at, trying to find out that meant, what that whole period meant, or what impression did it leave on me, or
mm,
whatever. Yeah, it makes me think about. I think it was it was the only time that my music was basically taken away from me. I couldn't do it. I
wow,
was not allowed to do it, you know.
wow.
And so that may have been the thing that you know, that I learned how important, my music is to me.
Yeah, I mean,
Or
and you said they could have actually kept you there for 4 years, and if you're not singing for 4 years, I
mm,
can't imagine then after 4 years trying to reconnect with that passion.
yeah, reconnected. Yeah, I probably would have found some kind of way to do something, but it would never have been on the scale of
This
what I
guy.
was able to do it, and the freedom
Yeah.
in which I was able to do it after I got out. You know, I mean, after I got out, I went back to Akron for about a year, and then my cousin and I got really tight when we were in our high school years and stuff, and he lived out here in California from the time he was like 5 years old till he was
Wow.
15. And then he and his brother ran away from home and came back to Akron. And then when we graduated, and I went in, he was supposed to go into the service with me, but he punked out. He didn't go. You know, but so, but when I got out of the service, I came back home, went back to Akron. And he said not long after that, he said, "Man, I'm going back to California." He said, "And in a year, I'm gonna call you and you come out in a year." Because he sang too. He
Okay.
sang as well. And so he goes back, he goes out to California, and almost to the date, he calls me
Wow.
a year later, he said, "Man, you gotta come out." He said, "I met this girl. She's got a two-bedroom apartment and her roommate will love you, right?" So, so like, long story short, a lot of stuff happened between that. But about a week later, I fly into California, right? And like, so he picks me up at the airport. We come out of the airport up La Cienega towards
Yeah.
Beverly Hills, towards Sunset, make that left on Sunset, go up into Beverly Hills and looking over the lights of the valley and smoking a joint, you know what I'm saying? And saying, and we're saying we're gonna conquer this sound, me and him. And I had $34 in my pocket. So I don't know how much conquering I was gonna be doing. But we got back in the car, came out of Beverly Hills, down Sunset, made that right onto La Cienega, up past the airport into the hood, the serious hood. And so, we come out we pull up to in front of to this apartment, this little apartment situation. And man, these people are trying to call me Zoom meeting. I don't have a Zoom meeting, you know. But so we come out and pull up to the thing, go to the apartment, go to the and his girl comes to the door and you know, nice caramel colored, California little Coke bottle, And then her roommate comes out. Let's just say a lot to be desired, you know what I'm saying? And my cousin's standing there and he couldn't even look me in the eye. You know what I'm saying? He couldn't even look me in the eye. I'm like, man, are you crazy? So long story short, we only last there for about, 2 weeks or so. But from that point on, it was me and my cousin, man. We when I see my cousin, even to this day, for about 9, 10 months, it was just me and him, Michael, my cousin Michael. When I see him today, even today, we have to laugh for about 10 or 15 minutes before we can have a decent conversation. He's just thinking about all the crazy stuff we did while we were out here.
But what was it like? I mean, I guess getting to California because this was Hollywood. This was, I
Hmm.
think, I don't know if Motown had moved out there by then or
I don't know.
okay.
I had wanted to live in California literally from the time I was 8 years old.
Wow.
Literally. My family, my dad, piled me and my sisters. I have a younger brother. He's 3 years younger than me. And he piled my sisters, all four of my older sisters, myself, Jeffrey, my brother, my mom, and his sister, my aunt Ida. God rest her soul, she passed away. Everybody's passed away. My dad, my mom, my aunt Ida. But he piled all of us into this station wagon that we
Mm,
had,
mm.
and we took a cross country trip from Ohio all the way across to California. And we went there and visited my mom's brother, my Uncle Joe, Michael, my cousin Michael's dad.
Okay, okay,
You
okay.
know, he lived out here and he had come back because Michael and Joseph, my two cousins, lived with my grandmother until they were 5 and about 7 years old.
Mm.
And my Uncle Joe got married. He came and got them, moved them to California. They lived out there. We took the cross country trip. We stayed with him and my Aunt Mary and Michael and Joseph for about 10 days, you know.
Wow.
And for that 10 days, dude, I mean, I remember the weather.
The sun, yeah.
I remember the palm trees. I
Palm
remember the
trees.
sunshine and he lived in Inglewood, so I remember
Okay.
the planes that would fly over his crib, coming from LAX. I remembered everything. And from that time on, we got after 10 days, we got back in the car, went
Hmm.
back to Ohio. But from that time on, I said,
Wow.
I'm gonna live in California. I'm gonna live in California. So
Wow.
living here is more like a passion to me. That's why it's not so easy for me to just get up and go, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. No, but
Yeah.
the fact that I mean, I just I would imagine just your cousin saying, "Yeah, this is it." Could you then
Mhm.
see the dream coming true? Being, I mean, you needed to be in California, then the dream of being a recording artist.
Well, when I first got out here, I helped put together this group called Beverly Hills. There's a place, there's a place called Mavericks Flat down on Crenshaw Boulevard, right? And John Daniels and Alonzo Daniels,
Mm,
two cats from I think they were actually from Gary, Indiana, I think.
wow.
But John came out, he did a bunch of these black exploitation movies, Black Shampoo and all that kind of stuff. And then he put together this place called Mavericks Flat. He and I think it was Jim Brown back in the day.
Wow.
Jim invested in this place with John called Mavericks Flat. And Mavericks was a club during the weekends,
Mm,
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they had upstairs were the offices and the rehearsal rooms, and they put together show groups. And they went and the offices they had a booking agency called Maverick International, and all of their bookings were overseas. Everything was
oh.
overseas. So, I put together. They had this group called the Love Machine, which Kathleen Bradley. You remember Miss what was it, Miss Jackson or whoever it was on Friday? Remember that movie Friday?
Yes, 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 yeah.
And what was the lady, Miss Jackson or something like that, across the street, then she's watering her yard and got the body and all that.
Yeah.
That was Kathleen Bradley, and she started out in one of the groups there at Mavericks called the Love Machine, and she eventually was one of the first. Well, she was the first black model on The Price is Right, the TV show.
Wow, wow, wow.
So, like, she was in beautiful. All of them had seven chicks, seven ladies. They were all fine. They were beautiful. And so, then they had this other group called Master's Children or something. And Ralph Johnson from Earth, Wind and Fire,
Mm,
he came from that group. And, they had a bunch of groups that they would take overseas. So once I helped put together this group called Beverly Hills. It was five singers and we had a seven-piece band. And once we were in shape enough to tour, but whenever we would want to try before we started touring, whenever we want to try a show out, we would play Mavericks Flat on the weekend, Friday and Saturday, you
ah,
know. And so that's when I first met Jeffrey and Jody. They were from Shalamar. All the Soul Train people used to come down there every weekend. All the Soul Train dancers and
okay,
stuff
okay, yeah, yeah.
used to come down to Mavericks. And I mean, Mavericks, you could look out in the audience any weekend. You could see Richard Pryor sitting out there,
Wow.
Lionel Richie from the Commodores at the time, Shaka Khan, all
Wow.
kind of people just used to come down to Mavericks. And so there was a great place to hone a show, to put a show
Mm.
together. So that's when I first met Jeffrey and Jody before Shalamar even existed. So, then I put this group together and we hired and fired people for about a year and then went over to our first gig was in Helsinki, Finland.
Wow.
So
Okay.
and then from there we went to Benidorm, Spain and Geneva, Switzerland, all over the place. And we were over there for about 9 months. I came home for a month and then went back over for about 3 or 4 months, and
Wow.
then came back and quit the group. By the time we broke up, by the time we left, Europe the second time, and I got back and then started kicking around LA, and then got the offer to join Shalamar on a Friday, and they asked, they were in the middle of a promotional tour on the East Coast, and I'm here on the West Coast, and they needed a lead singer all of a sudden, because they were promoting that tune, Take That to the Bank, right?
Yeah.
And so the lead singer, they got into a little thing or whatever. He splits and leaves them in the middle of a promotional tour with no lead singer. And Jeffrey Daniel tracked me down, and I got the offer on a Friday. Went to Dick Griffey's house on Saturday, sang a little piece of "Feel the Fire" by Peabo Bryson,
Wow.
a cappella. And then that night, Saturday night, I was on a red eye, met the group over in New Jersey on Sunday morning. They all day long we rehearsed the lip sync and the choreography to Take That to the Bank, and then on Sunday, and then on Monday we were in front of a TV camera, doing
Wow.
performing performing Take That to the Bank. It's like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, boom, we're into it. And then we finished out the tour, the promotional tour they were on, and then came back home and started working on the Big Fun album, and then second time around and all that stuff.
So do you think being in Beverly Hills, the group, it kind of homed you that you were oven ready to be? What do you think?
Well, the thing is, when I tell that story, because I can go deeper in
Yeah,
that
yeah,
into that story, you know what I'm saying? But I tell that story mainly, not mainly, but a lot to kids, kids that are, wanting to know, okay, how do you get into the business? How do you get blah, blah, blah. And you're talking to kids. And so I asked them, I said, what do you think the most important thing is? And, a lot of times it's like you got to be in the right place at the right time,
yeah,
which is true. Which is true. My dad used to tell me, you got to surround yourself with what you want to, deal with the type of people that you want to deal upwardly mobile or in the same set, whatever.
yeah,
And so like, it's like you you figure that out, and then, you know, you're in the right place, the right time. But there's another part to that that's the most important part, and that's being in the right place, right time, and being prepared.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So all of the things with with the Hewitt singers, with
Mm,
back in Life Band, back in, getting there with Beverly Hills, going overseas, the whole thing prepared me to be prepared
yeah,
when the time came. At that point, for somebody to tell me I'm 20 years old, 21, well, not 20, but I'm like about 22 then,
yeah.
somewhere around there. I had no fear about
Mm,
nothing. No, it's because all those times I spent on stage. So
yeah.
I tell kids, I say, if you're an actor or actress, act.
Mm,
Every chance you get, act. If you're a singer, sing, because you never know who's listening
yeah,
out there. And even if nobody's listening,
yeah.
you're you know uh you're like perfecting your craft so
Mm,
that when somebody's listening, you're prepared.
yeah.
So man, it's like, I think, yeah, everything was instrumental in to getting to that point.
I wonder if the Air Force training, that 10 months and the discipline also had that, yeah, because that was difficult, but that
Yeah,
sense of I wouldn't want to go back there. I mean, I don't know. That's you
yeah.
asked if that Air Force had a part to play in your career.
Yeah, where I don't want to go,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
they want.
whatever. So you're given an opportunity like, well, I know what it's like
Yeah,
not to have this opportunity and not to sing again.
yeah. It's like you meet a lot of people, in this business that you learn. One of the things you learn is how not to do something.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
One of the most important lessons you can get from some people is how not to do something, you know.
yeah.
So,
The thing is that so I'm a therapist by day, so that's and
all right, all right.
yeah, so
So don't send me a bill
no, no,
now.
no,
You know
no.
what I'm
So by day
saying?
I'm a therapist, and at night I do this because it's a 10 o'clock at night here. But
Hmm.
most of my I've interviewed a lot of people from the East Coast talking about the whole New Jack Swing, Gene Griffin, and that whole thing. The
About who now? About what now?
Gene Griffin.
Gene Griffin.
Gene Griffin, Teddy Riley guy, Gene Griffin, the one who was he's the one that Suge Knight was his bodyguard back in the day.
Oh wow,
So he was,
yeah,
so he was
man.
the and he was the East Coast version of what people thought Dick was like, Dick Griffin, because uh,
Dick Griffey.
Dick
Yeah,
Griffey, yeah.
yeah.
But and I guess just thinking, so I was just almost going to this fact that um, you were prepared professionally, but then were you educated about the business that you were getting into, as opposed
Hmm.
to, oh, you've gotten a chance, I'm just going to go in there.
No, you know what? It was like then there was such a naivete that was happening, and it's like this is what you did. You know what I'm saying? And so like you learned all that as you went along.
Everyone says that. I was hoping you'd say no. I kind of read the books and I had lawyers and they explained and so
Man, you know what? That first contract, man, from Solar,
yeah.
and the whole thing was something that you frame and put up on the wall as the comedy situation, So, but we were just happy to be doing what we were doing,
Mm.
and but then you learned. You started, that was the first time because before that I was doing, like I said, the show group and
Yeah,
stuff. There
session.
wasn't there wasn't any, Hewett Singers. There wasn't any recording going on. We
Yeah,
didn't do
yeah.
a recording. The show group, Beverly Hills, we didn't do any recording. Although I tried to talk to, without even knowing, what I was talking about. Basically, I remember one time seeing a presentation that they were making to Norman Whitfield,
Oh,
and
wow.
he was down. It was they were doing the presentation at Mavericks Flat during the day one
Mm.
day, and I was just at Mavericks hanging out because that Mavericks was like my second home back then. And so like I'm hanging out, and at this time I'm like 21, 22, something like. And they were doing this little presentation, giving him this platinum plaques for the car wash and all that. And they were doing it in Mavericks, like I said. And I stood at the door and watched for a while, and then I just walked outside. I'm like, man, and I walked outside, sat in my car. I had my car there then, and John Daniels comes out, and he said, "Are you okay, man?" John's this bigger than life dude, right? One of the plaques that really described John to a T. He had this plaque on his desk back in the day. Said, "It's hard to be humble when you're as great as I am." You know what I'm saying? And that's what he was about. That's what John Daniels. And so but he came out, and he was talking and he said, "You okay, man?" I said, "Man, I can do that." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Man, I can make I can make gold records. I can sing gold. Put me in the studio. I can make gold and platinum records. I can do that." Ah, ha, 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 ha. You know, it's like, and then he says, you just get ready to, because I was supposed to go back overseas on that second part of that tour
Okay,
with them,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that was during that month that I was home. And so like he said, you just get ready to go back overseas. Ha ha ha. And so, so I went back over and did that second tour and then came back. That's like I said, that's when we kind of split up. And then I started, uh just hustling around LA for a while, for about 6 months. 6, 7 months or so. Then that's when, after that, that's when I got the offer to join Shalamar.
And but then, as I said, no one teaches anybody anything. It's
Mm-mm.
almost like you've got to learn it the
It,
hard way.
it's on the job training, baby. It's
Oh
like,
man.
but and everything is right there available to you to go whichever direction you want to go. You know what I'm saying? And like, fortunately, praise God, I never had that addictive personality.
Mm.
I think the only thing I ever came close to being addicted to are women. I think that's the only thing I've ever been close to being addicted to. You know, no weed, cocaine or nothing. I experienced those things, but it wasn't something that was really, so everything is right there in front of you. You know what I'm saying? And you can make your choices. We're all a direct byproduct of the choices and decisions that we made in our lives. As a therapist, you would know that.
Yeah,
You would
yeah,
know that
yeah,
whole
yeah,
thing.
yeah. No, but when you like I've spoken to over 200 artists from Cool and the Gang to Kathy Sledge to Dal Simmons. I mean, unfortunately, I'm always hoping for a different story, and everyone just says yes. They get you the first time, or you learn on the job, and it. And I think you can laugh about it now because things have changed, but it just feels sad, especially when if you were a football player,
Mhm.
they sign you to here's how much you're going to make and we're going to take care of you because you're an asset and we need you to be successful. It just seems as if the music industry is the only industry that is like you're an asset and we're going to make money out of this asset. I mean, if you're
Mhm.
an actor, you probably might know here's how much you're going to get paid, and the more popular the things out will increase. But it seems like
Mhm.
music just feels like the main industry in the world that they rub you before you even start.
Before you even start, it's like, you have to really figure out what the dynamics are, as far as economically is concerned. You have to figure out that, they don't give you nothing. They don't give you anything. Everything is calculated. Like, is you learn the one of the most important words to learn initially is recoupable. Recoup.
Recoupable, yeah, I've heard of
Recoup. you
that.
know, because everything's recouped. You having a great time in the
But
studio. You got your friends in there. You're catering. You get all that, and then you wonder, uh, what do you mean? Where'd this $1 million come from? $1 million. Who's supposed to be paying for that? You know what I'm saying? But you learn that real quick, and if you're smart, you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
and you figure out where you're supposed to be paying most attention to, as far as, like, that whole economic thing. I've known cats. I've seen both extreme ends of the spectrum, as they say. And one end, I've seen the cats that don't talk to me about nothing
Mm,
financial. I got a manager, I got an accountant, I
mm,
got, this, that. All I want to deal with is the music. And a lot of those cats now are broke,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah,
or were broke. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? If they're even around now.
yeah.
And then you get onto the other end of the spectrum where it's all about the money.
Mm,
It's all about the Benjamins, as they say. It's
yeah,
all about the money. I don't do nothing without blah 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 blah. Now the creativity is lacking,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
So you got to find somewhere, in that middle, right there, that services both of those situations. And uh it's a hard thing for a lot of people. It's a hard thing for some people.
But then think about the fact that you're now with Shalamar making global hit records.
Hmm.
Everyone knows your name, everyone's screaming for you. How does, as a human being, do you manage being desired, being famous, being everyone? I mean, how does that transformation happen, and how do you manage? Does the ego just go through the roof? I mean, how did you? Can you remember?
See, see, ego to me is like ego means ease God out.
Oh wow,
You know
that's
what I'm
deep.
saying?
He's got out. Wow,
Ease God out, man. You
wow.
know, don't be believing your own BS. because man, it's like, because you go through different, if you're going to be in this business, you're going to go through different phases, different, just like right now, me in commercial, Howard Hewett in commercial radio, we are not bedfellows. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? But that's okay. But that's okay. There's been other times in my careers where we weren't bedfellows. And then I'll put something out that they dig and then put out, and then we're cool. And then we're not bedfellows. But the thing is how do you build a career to the point where none of that is going to affect your bottom line? You know what I'm saying?
mm.
That's not going to affect it. It's like I can do, I do my personal appearances. I've been a performing artist since I was 10 years old. So
Yeah,
that's
you
what I
said.
do.
Yeah,
That's what I do. I could never just stay in the studio forever,
yeah,
because I want to go in the studio and I want to create things. When I go in the studio, I don't hardly go in the studio now because I'm just enjoying what I'm doing, what I've, thank God he's allowed me to create. But I wanted to go into the studio and like create something that, will that will last through the years. You never
yeah.
know. I don't know anybody that's ever gone into the studio and when they come out, man, I just recorded a hit record. No, no, I don't know anybody I know of people that go in and create amazing music,
Yeah, yeah,
but there's so much other stuff that has to be brought into making it a hit record.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? So it's like you figure that out. You figure out, the things as far as like you stay, things that are going to keep you evenly keeled,
mm,
because there's going to be times when people, man, you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. You're the baddest vocalist out there. Boy, you bad. Yeah, okay, cool, you know, but praise God, thank God, thank you. I remember doing an interview, and this is always a funny little story. It's like I remember doing an interview with this lady, and like I always say, you know, hey man, thank God, praise the Lord. I always say that.
yeah.
And she stopped. She said, "Are you saying that, for my benefit? Because and when she asked me that, it kind of took me, aback a little bit. And before I could even stop it, I said, it don't have nothing to do with you. It's not has nothing to do with you. It's to keep me humble
Mm,
and to keep things in perspective in my head, in my spirit. You know what
wow.
I'm saying? It's like it's so easy to
Mm,
get, into wanting the accolades of people that it's but how do you keep yourself humble? How do you
yeah,
keep, you know like when you said earlier, how do and a minute ago, how do you do that without getting ego? First thing, take ego out, because that ain't gonna service you at all.
yeah.
You know, that's not going to service you. Now, I'm confident, don't get me wrong. I'm confident. I'm confident about what I do, and if I wasn't confident about what I do after doing it for 50 some years,
Yeah,
there's something wrong,
yeah,
something wrong with it. But as far as being my ego, oh, I'm the greatest thing. This cat told me one time, he said, "Man, I know some guy that could sing Say Amen better than you." And I told him, dude, I know a bunch of cats that can sing Say Amen better than me. I know a bunch of cats that can sing me out this door, sing me under the table. But when you put their name up on the marquee, who's going to put butts in the seats?
Yeah.
Who had my thing is based on the foundation that I've been blessed
Mm.
to develop. It's like when I was a kid, I used to watch them build houses in my neighborhood. They would dig the holes, then they would put the reinforced cement and all that. They would take forever
Yeah.
building that
The
foundation. They
foundation.
take forever building
Yeah.
that foundation. Once the foundation was done, boom, 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 the house goes up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you build that foundation strong enough,
Yeah.
eventually you can tear that house down and build a whole brand new house on top of it.
That's true.
If you build that foundation strong enough. So if you take that into life, period. Just like what's your foundation? What's your
Mm.
foundation?
Yeah.
And when you go through, if thank God if you have the opportunity to build a strong foundation and you can equate it to things that are going on in your life.
Mm.
Man, hey, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah, but you said, from 10 you were singing, you had that effect on a woman in church, and then so you knew how to, but I'm thinking you're singing Night to Remember, you're going around the world, and then you said the one addiction you had with women. So I can't imagine what it is like being Howard Hewett at the height of Shalamar.
uh,
I mean, you're grounded now, but back in then, what was it like being you in the
I,
height of
I
Shalamar?
was I was crazy, man. Come on, man. You know, I mean, it was like I had always dealt with quote unquote groupies type of situation. I mean, 10, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. You had church groupies, you know what I'm saying? Then 14, by 15, 16, 17, 18. That year in the Air Force was nothing. Then 19, go back home. I'm back with Life Band, and we had our groupies
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
The little ladies that would follow us, all around. They know who they are. I don't have
Right.
to call any names, but they know who was hanging out and being. So you had that. Then 19, 20, 20 then I come out here uh, 20 years old, come out 20, 21, 22. I'm overseas
Wow.
with Beverly Hills, right?
Yeah.
And it's not about how much money you make.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, it's not. When you're up on stage, there's
Yeah.
something that's going on that in in women's mind that are like, that's the only way I can say it. So, and not disrespectfully, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
you have respect. So, I had that, the foreign groupies
Yeah,
from
yeah. Finland and
Helsinki, Finland
yeah,
to
yeah.
Geneva, Switzerland, all over. So then come back from there and kick around LA for about 6, 7 months or whatever, and get the off to join Shalamar to go right into Shalamar.
Yeah.
On the road, you got those groupies that don't even know who you are if you're off stage. But once you hit that stage,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, you take it. And as a kid and back then, not knowing, somebody said one time, if you don't know the true purpose of something, then abuse is inevitable.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
If I don't know the true purpose of this remote control, the
Yeah.
only thing I would know to do would to abuse it.
Hmm.
If you don't know the true purpose of a woman, a good woman,
Yeah.
you know, uh, a woman, period. I mean, it's like there's a. I think women are the most amazing creatures God created.
Yeah.
Mentally, spiritually, you get a good spiritual woman, you know, um, that whole thing. But if you don't know how to how to
Yeah.
do it, and you just like whatever, then all you know how to do is abuse it. And I think it was like, so then you had the foreign groupies, kids back here, Shalamar, and I'm gonna tell you, there is nothing com comparable to hit record groupies. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Hit record groupies are crazy, so then, but then you start figuring that out, and you start figuring out, man, they don't even know me, you
Yeah.
know. They don't know me. They know what they've accumulated in their minds as far as on the album cover liner notes and Right On magazine
Right on. Yeah.
and all that, but they don't really know me, and so that kind of took that whole thing
Okay.
down a notch, you know what I mean? But I mean, I've been married 3 times,
Okay.
and it's like, and I don't believe that, you're going through those three different things. And I tell people, I say, you know, I've been married 3 times. The only common factor is me. So I got to look at that,
Yeah.
and be honest about that, and like, and try to, you know, and from that knowledge, better myself from that point on, you
Yeah.
know.
I think, but I don't think anything can be, how am I to be critical about, I have no idea what it's like being on stage and being desired by everyone and being called upon, having number one records going around the world, what that does, how it does ease God out of you and
Mm.
and put you in there. But
And
then,
that,
yeah,
and that on that pedestal
on that
thing,
pedestal.
that got that guy, because we got, you know, okay, so the first commandment, right? You shall have no other gods above me.
yeah,
Okay, so you should have no other gods above me.
mm,
So that's saying, well, are there other gods? You know what I'm
mm,
saying?
yeah,
And there are other gods, small g gods, the
yeah,
small g gods, and money can be a god,
mm,
thing. And then you look at, being up on stage, and like
mm,
you said, being desired by this whole thing, and being there's people, I mean, that's in the whole in that whole situation that, and to their detriment, could not get people around them that would not tell them the truth, you know, and just people around them that tell them yes about everything, because they
mm,
put them in that goddom type
yeah,
of position. And is when you think about the fact that, you know, my God is that big G God. My
mm,
God is, all encompassing everything,
mm,
and myself, everything,
mm,
everything,
mm,
you know, everything. And you can't slip up and let the enemy in. So, and let one little area of it. Well, this might be about me. No, it's not about you. It's not about you at all. It's not about you. It's about God,
yeah,
Christ, the Holy Spirit. How you get to God is you and God, you and your journey with God.
yeah.
You know, my journey, the way I got to God and the way I got to it might not be good for you, because it
Yeah.
might take you way over a cliff. If you're not able, if you're not able to hone those things in, because a lot of those things can take you way out here,
Yeah.
and that's not where you want to be. And I remember when I was a kid, I used to hate getting whoopings, and I used to hate getting disciplined. And my dad, man, my dad, when he was when I was a kid, and I would rather get a whooping than sit and go through one of his lectures. And because
Ah,
my dad would like sit and lecture you, and then he was one of these cats. He was like, "Well, son,"
it was anything.
he just sit there sometimes, and like I'm like, "Pop, come on, give me the whooping. I'd rather take the whooping." I mean, now it's a situation where I would give anything to hear one of his lectures again. But back then, when I was a kid, it was like, so I didn't like getting disciplined, and so that I take that to my heavenly Father.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? My heavenly Father. I don't like getting disciplined. So
yeah.
I go off to the left sometime, I go off to the right sometime, but it's always important to get right back in the middle all the time.
In the height of Shalamar, did the Hewitt family not come in to say, "Come on, son, what are you doing?" The family to remember your roots. So could anyone talk to you?
No, nobody, well, no, they were happy. They were good. My sisters were doing it wasn't anything about that. It was like, it was about going off and doing, no, we never had anything like that because, my sisters went off and did their things, and, with their families and the whole thing. And they always, when we get together, when all of us get together now, they always want to start singing. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, I ain't gonna start singing. But no, we didn't have anything like that. It wasn't anything to reel you in for. It's like, I mean, I remember when I did the Journey. I did an inspirational album, a complete inspirational album called The Journey. It
Mm.
was out. I forget what year it was out, but we did a couple days of
2001.
2001.
Yeah.
Okay. So we did a couple of days of promotion, for that album in New York, right? And one of the first cats to come in, and one of the first interviewers that came in, he says, "Well, what do you, how do you think the gospel community is going to accept your inspirational album?" Your gospel album. They call it I call it inspirational. I don't call it gospel. But he said, "How do you think the gospel community is going to accept, your gospel album?" And that was, I never had those preconceived interviews, so it kind of shocked me that question. I thought for a second. I said, "Well, I really didn't do this for
Mm.
the gospel community. I did this for people who are searching for communication with God, with
Yeah.
Christ.
Yeah.
Like it says in the word, a physician's not needed
Mm.
among well people. You
Yeah.
know what I'm
Yeah. You're
saying?
right.
So I didn't do this for that. I'm looking. This is to help. If it helps somebody in that situation, it's cool.
Yeah.
And so then he says, "Well, does this mean you're gonna do gospel music, or you're gonna do secular? You're still gonna do secular music, right?" And I said, "Well, I've never done secular music in my career." And he says, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, secular basically means without God,
Mm.
and there's nothing that I've ever done that's been without God."
Mm.
I don't, there's a difference between singing about love and romance
Yeah.
and singing about sex.
Yeah.
I don't sing about sex. I sing about love. God
Mm.
made love. He created love. You
Mm.
know, I grew up in a house full of women. Before my brother came, it was just me and my dad with the testosterone around my house. It was like five other women, my four sisters and my mom.
Yeah.
So when I do things, when even now to this day, but especially back in the day, when I was writing, when I was really, active in writing, it was always important to me to make sure I'm saying something that means something, but
Yeah.
is that is respectful as well. That so I look part of the criteria, would my mom or my sisters be proud of this?
Yeah.
You know.
But I
So
Yeah, but and I know that it can be a divided thing where people would say, well, you're either gospel or secular. But then, as I said, if you're singing uplifting music,
Hmm.
anyone that hears can relate to love, can relate to restoration, you know, positivity. And even
Hmm.
if you think of Shalamar, I think most of the songs seemed more fun and energetic.
Fun.
It wasn't that, so yeah, I mean, you were giving, that's why kids and families could enjoy the music because it
Hmm.
wasn't pulling down, it was lifting up.
It was feel we call it feel
Feel,
good music.
yeah,
Feel
feel
good
good.
music, and like, it's like, let's have a good time, man. Come on. We got all these crazy, especially now. Good
Yeah,
gracious.
yeah.
It's, you got all this stuff, it's exhausting sometimes, but you can't get exhausted because that's what they want you to do. They want you to get exhausted so
Yeah.
that, you'll just, I can't deal with this. I don't even want to know what's going on. No, you gotta know what's going on. You gotta know what's happening. You might want to take a break every once in a while, but you gotta know because you can't. This is just like, I always refer back to the word, man. It's like, the enemy's biggest weapon is to make us believe that he doesn't
Yeah,
exist.
yeah, that is
You
true.
know?
That is true. Because if you do see a red horned figure with a big pitchfork, you'd all run and be afraid. But
Yeah.
yeah, what was the
Yeah.
proudest moment for your family in your music career? What would you think was your mom, your dad, your sisters? What do you think was that moment that they're like, oh my God, that's our Howard.
This is, it's like when I was out here, because I got out here in 76, something like that, and joined the group. I think it was the end of 78 or something. But during that 2 year plus or whatever period, it's like I wasn't making any money. I was like, I went overseas, with the group, with the show group, and
Mm.
I was making like 250, $300 a week, but I had no responsibility. I had no wife. I had no kids. I tell my kids even, now, I remember when I didn't have none of y'all. And I was, and so, but I wasn't making any money. And when I got back from there, it was like, I especially wasn't making any money then. And I hadn't saved any money. I wasn't over there saving money. But my dad used to, he was a postman at the post office back in Akron.
Mm.
And so he used to always tell me, he said, son, I can get you on at the post office. I can get you lifetime, you have lifetime benefits, the whole thing, you retire, you'll be, and I'm like, Pop, I didn't, but I can, there's something that, I didn't even know what it was, but I knew I was working towards something,
Yeah.
something, and so when Shalamar, when Second Time Around came out, and and started screaming up the charts, the whole thing. Then we were going out on the road, and then they booked EJ Performing Arts Center in Akron,
Wow.
Ohio, one of the biggest venues at that time, back in
Mm.
Akron. Sold it out within a couple hours, right?
Wow.
And then they added a second show,
Wow.
and that one eventually sold out. So we did two shows at the EJ Performing Arts Center. This had to have been in 1980, somewhere around there. When Second Time Around was out doing this thing, and my dad was in the front row on both of those shows,
Wow.
and he had, the look on his face was like, okay, it was okay, like, okay, I see what you were saying, what you were talking about now. and that look was, priceless, man. And it was like in this, it about a year after that he passed away, you
My
know,
God.
and but because I was 26 when he passed away. He passed at 59.
Wow.
And I was 26, and sometimes I would always say, sometimes I would say afterwards, and even up until like 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, I would say, I wonder what kind of man would I be, because 26, you're still
It's so,
developing,
yeah.
your thing, and you're developing your manhood, your man thing, and to have your dad, which my dad, that was, me and my dad were like, I mean,
Mm,
we were close. And I was wonder, I say, what kind of man would I be if would have had my dad, just a little bit longer, bounce
mm,
some things off of, you know, just bounce some things. But then my spirit says, hey, God doesn't make mistakes,
yeah.
So everything that he was supposed to give me, he
Mm,
gave me.
yeah.
So I couldn't argue with that, and I just had to go on from there. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And adjust from that point on. So it was, but that was that was. There's many proud moments, but that was one of the proudest
Did you
moments.
guys talk after the show? Did he say anything?
Oh yeah, we talked. He was like, oh man, son, that was great. That was great, son. The whole thing. My dad was really cool. My dad was he was a good guy. My dad was a good cat,
Wow.
good guy. I believe I got a lot of my compassion and that type
Mm.
of stuff from my dad. And from my mom, I think I got a lot of, some of my stick-to-itiveness. That's what she used to tell me. She said, "Boy, you got to learn some stick-to-itiveness." You know,
Well,
you know.
how did your dad's passing affect your career then musically? I mean, did you, because you were successful, did you have to put things on hold or the show must go
No,
on?
no, someone's going. I sang at my dad's funeral. I sang one of his favorite songs, "Peace Be Still" by
Mm.
James Cleveland, and then went back out on the road. Some of the saddest times in my life have been spent on stage. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And has somewhat been, the way that I may have gotten through some things. You
Mm.
know what I'm saying? And certain things, breaking up, a marriage breaking up.
Mm.
I'm on the road. I got work. you know, I
Wow.
got to work. So I put that pain into the show maybe or whatever, and sit and have some, but there's certain things. I mean, I don't reveal
Yeah,
my
yeah.
personal life on stage, but you know, in some ways, your audience can help you get through, you know, the love from the audience can help you get through a difficult time as well.
Wow. Did 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 you ever want to go solo? Or did you, in the height of Shalamar, did you think this was going to be a long lasting group?
You look at certain things as far as the group was concerned. I mean, I always wanted to do a solo thing, but
Okay.
it could have been done within the context of the group and doing
Yeah.
solo. I think it had to have been the ability of the record company that had control over that type of stuff.
Yeah.
It had to become the ability for them to be able to see that and see
Yeah.
beyond that, and not just see excuse me, not just see right here.
Yeah.
Like there's some people that only see 10 inches in front of their face,
Yeah.
but they can't see down the line. And I
Mm.
think that was some of the mentality that was going on at that time. Because I mean, I could have done a solo situation within the context of Shalamar. Jody
Mm.
Watley. Jody Watley could have done a solo situation within the context of Shalamar.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, his thing was a lot more on the dance
And
side, but
creativity. Yeah.
yeah, and choreography and all that. But he had good musical instincts and good musical ideas and stuff. He could have done a
Yeah.
solo album, but out of within the context of Shalamar's situation. But everybody just understand that Shalamar is the nucleus of
Yeah.
that
Like
whole
New
thing.
Edition showed us how to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, but we didn't have the right type of guidance, I think,
Mm.
within that whole thing to guide us through something like that. It was a whole nother situation. Plus, we were kids. We were
Yeah.
all kids. Man. We was like, 24, 25 years
Yeah.
old and stuff.
Yeah.
That's you're still a kid, you
Yeah.
know. So, um, so it was always a thought of doing a solo situation, but then the group broke up. And then, like I said, with the people who had to control the whole situation, no, you can go to court, get out of this, out of your contract, this agreement, or you can sit around, wait for not do anything, or you can just do a new, another Shalimar record, you know. I don't like court,
Yeah.
courts like
No one
courts like
wins.
yeah, courts like throwing dice out, it's like,
Yeah.
so said I'm not going to do that. So I opted to do another Shalimar album. That's when we did the Heartbreak album. And
Mm.
then after that, my contract was up with them, with
Yeah.
Solar Records. And that's when I went straight to Elektra. Yeah.
I remember your performance of Say Amen on, is it Robert Townsend?
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that was that your Motown 25 Michael Jackson moment? I mean, I don't know if you
It
could.
was it was powerful,
Yeah.
and it was it was very advantageous for with the way that whole thing came about. Robert, I didn't know Robert. I knew of Robert,
Oh, I thought you were
I didn't
friends. Where okay.
not when we first met, not when he first approached me about doing that. I knew, like I said, I knew of him.
Yeah, yeah.
And Keenan
Mm,
White, Wayans and all that. And so he got in touch with me, and I met him he was doing a rehearsal of something, and I met him at the studio. And we met each other, and we went to the office, and so he says I'm gonna do my first HBO special, comedy
mm.
special. And he said I would love to have you do Say Amen on there. I said, hey man, that's cool, that's very cool, I said I'd be honored, I'd be honored to do it. He said, but I want to sing it with you. And I'm like, uh in my head, I'm like, does he sing? I don't remember him being a singer, I don't, so, but my whole thing about Say Amen is that, that's not my song. That's the Lord's song. That's
Yeah.
God's song, so, but I guess he could see the look on my face, right? And so he says, this is my first HBO special.
Mm.
I can't think of any other way of thanking God
Okay.
than doing your song,
Okay.
than having you perform the song and me doing it with you, blah, blah, blah. So I said, of course, man, of course, and it turned out amazing. I mean, he's not his performance on there was, I think it was great,
Yeah.
and sincere. I think
Mm.
it's one of the is probably the word I would use. Um, but yeah, sincere, and man, by time the Partners in Crime HBO special aired, by the time it aired, I had already just released my second solo album, which was Forever and Ever.
Mm.
And when that HBO thing aired, the next day, the record stores across the country had to reorder the
I
first
committed to,
album,
wow, I committed to
I
love.
Commit to
Okay.
Love, yeah, because so many people came in there, swarmed the places especially across the East Coast and stuff and Midwest, looking for Say Amen,
Wow.
so yeah, so it was very powerful, and Say Amen was, the first uh inspirational song because I made a promise to God years
Mm.
ago that every album that I do, every solo album I do, there will have at least one song on there honoring God, Christ, the Holy Spirit. So
How does the label deal with that? Because I know in the 90s people were it was easier to chuck it in, but you're talking about the eight, you're talking about like 88 and stuff. How or
80, 80,
80,
80,
86. I mean, how did the
yeah,
label say, well, we're not doing a
yeah.
gospel album. What are you trying? Did they fight you on that or
Man, it was the release of the I Commit to Love album was 86, but the starting to talk about it was 85, right?
okay, yeah, yeah.
When I first left Solar,
Yeah.
and then I went to
Electra.
Electra. And so, I Electra was not my first choice of, because at the time the only thing they had over there was the Eagles. It was like,
Oh,
it was crazy.
oh, there was no Troop and there was no Chucky and there was none of
Mm.
no Sylvia
Anita,
Rome.
there was no need. This was before Sylvia. This was before Sylvia Rome. This was
Okay.
Bob Krasnow was over
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, okay,
So
okay.
like so like it was like I left Electra. It wasn't my first. I mean, I
No,
left
Solar,
Solar.
Solar.
I'm sorry, left Solar, and so my attorney was telling me. He says, "Well, you have what they call first rights of refusal clause in your contract because Electra was Solar's
Distributor.
distribution company,
Mm,
so they had first rights of refusal on anything that would come off of Solar Records, right?"
mm.
So my manager, he wasn't my manager,
Attorney.
my attorney, because I don't think I even had a manager at that time. I hadn't, I just hired these other people. No, it was before I hired the management company I ended up going with. But lecture had first rights of refusal. So I told my attorney, I said, so first rights of refusal, that means that we have to take them a deal first
Mm,
before we could go anywhere else. You know, we had to take them the deal first, and they have the first rights to
mm.
refuse that deal. And if they refuse that deal, then I'm free to go wherever else I want to go.
Okay.
So I said, if that's the case, I was telling my attorney, I said, well, if that's the case, why don't we just make this deal so ridiculous? You know, money wise, back then it was about advances and
Advances.
stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah.
and money wise bumps, when you reach
Mm.
this amount, there's make these some exorbitant bumps that go up, and we put everything but the kitchen sink in that thing, man.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so we finished, and my attorney took it to Bob Krasnow, and my attorney calls me like a couple days later. He says, I took it to Krasnow. He got back with me this morning. He said, what else do you want?
What?
So they gave me everything I asked for in
Oh my
that in
goodness.
that agreement, and which was for a first time. Even though I've been with Shalamar, I wasn't a proven solo artist yet,
But
and it could be a difference, but still,
yeah, but
realistically, they putting the money out there though, so. but I wasn't approving. There's a lot of people that left groups and then they went to go solo, but they had to go back to the group
Yeah,
because
yeah, it's not
they
easy.
didn't,
Yeah, it's not guaranteed. Yeah.
it's no guarantee. Like I
Mm,
said, I think a lot of my stuff was, well, all of my stuff was because of the blessings, because of God's blessing. But a lot of it also, but even through that, my naivete situation was like, I was too naive to be nervous about it. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
hey, this is the way, this is the progression. This is,
Mm.
and so like, he said, what else you want? So then we started working on the solo album.
Yeah, because if their label that has the Eagles, which had one of the biggest albums ever,
Hmm.
uh, money they look at money differently, and you learned from Dick Griffin about recoupable. So you
Hmm.
probably kind of you learned your lesson knowing that when you signed with Elektra, you knew what I guess did you know, okay, we're not going to be getting ripped off this way. Am I publishing? Were you able to
Yeah,
sort it out by
definitely.
then?
You set up, I had set up my publishing and stuff though before I
So,
left Shalamar. My publishing was Lakiva Music, and then in a co-publishing deal with Spectrum 3, I think it was, or Spectrum 7, whatever it was. And then mine was administrated in a 50/50 deal with Warner Chappell,
oh
you know.
wow, okay,
So, I put all, thank God I put all that together before. And you figure out certain things, definitely. You figure out certain ways that you don't want to go, and even I was still learning lessons even after that.
wow. In the pandemic, you released To Thee I Pray, and I think you
Hmm.
had Shanna do your
Yeah,
directing the
yeah,
video.
yeah,
What
yeah.
was I mean, that was during a pandemic, so most of us couldn't go out, but it was shot really well. But what was the thought around releasing that during that time?
It was especially at that time. I mean, the changes that the country was going through, the world, not just the country,
Yeah.
but the world was going through. And To Thee I Pray was something that I wrote like back in 1992, you know,
Wow.
and unfortunately, it still rang true, today, or during it still rings true today. There's like, To Thee I Pray. Can't we just learn how to praise God and how, one of the simplest things that would if world leaders would internalize it or whatever you want to
Mm,
call it, but if they just the one basic situation, treat people the way that you would want to be
yeah.
treated,
Yeah.
you know. So you wouldn't want somebody to blow up your boat
Yeah.
in Venezuela, you know what I'm saying, out on the Caribbean. You wouldn't want nobody to just kill everybody on your boat. So why are you going to do that? And there's
Yeah.
laws that are supposed to protect people from that type of thing, due
Mm,
process, all that kind of stuff.
mm,
But if you know people with if they would just adopt and grasp onto that simple principle, you know, even if they halfway grabbed onto it, it would be a better situation. But I always say, man, it's a different world, but the same God. You know what
yeah.
I'm saying? Different world, but it's the same God. He ain't changed.
No,
You
definitely.
know?
There was just a
Yeah.
few questions that people had for you, and I just want to say, so Peabody Black says, how do you relax and deal with stress?
I don't deal with stress.
Okay.
That's stress and man, come on. It's like stress and worry.
Mm,
Stress and worry, like they say, somebody I heard a long time ago, stress and worry is like a rocking chair. It gives you a whole lot to do, but takes you nowhere. When you're done,
yeah.
when you're done with all this, you're
Yeah.
still in the same place that you were in before. If you look at stress, you look at worry, you look at the word disease. Well, you separate that word, disease, Disease, dis-ease,
Mm,
dis-ease.
mm,
Disease is caused by dis-ease. You know, I remember years and years ago, before I even went overseas with the show group Beverly Hills, I had this little apartment on little efficiency apartment, right?
mm.
One room, one number one. The only separate room was the bathroom. That was it, and that was my little place, and it was up on Fountain, right near Vine Street, up in Hollywood. And so, like, I remember I was rehearsing with the group, with the Beverly Hills group. We were scheduled to leave and start this tour in 2 months, right? To go to Finland. So I'm sitting at the apartment building, at my little apartment at the apartment building, and I was sitting talking to the on-premise manager. He didn't he was a manager. He probably collected everybody's rent and all that kind of stuff. So I asked him, I said, now tell me, if I was to stop paying rent right now, I said, how long would it take for them to physically put me out of my apartment? Now I'm 21 years old, so somewhere around there. How long would it take me? And he goes through this whole thing. Well, they send pay or quit notices and blah 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 blah. He said, but altogether it take about 90 days for them to actually put you out of your apartment. I said, 90 days? I said, that's 3 months. He said, yeah. I said, well, I'm gonna be gone in 2 months, right? So I said, I'm gonna stop paying rent right now. I'm gonna stop. So I stopped paying rent, right? Start getting the pay or quit notices and blah 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 blah. Blah. But I'm going on because I'm gonna be gone. By the time 3 months comes, I can stand pay or quit notices. That doesn't make me feel bad. You know what I'm saying? So about 2 weeks before we were supposed to leave, the tour gets pushed back for about 2 months, right?
Oh.
And I'm like, what the hell? What? Oh man, what am I gonna do? It's not like I was saving money. And when I had this little job at this women's shoe department at this department store, but I wasn't saving my paycheck or nothing like that. I'm going because I'm gonna be gone in 2 months. Then it gets pushed back, right? I start worrying, man, what in the world am I gonna do? I can't call my dad. He already sent me money a couple months ago.
Oh, wow.
Can't call. I can't do. I can't. What am I going? And then about 2 days into it, I go to my mailbox, right? And my dad had given the church that we went to back in Akron. He had given them my address, so they would send me every week. I would get this newsletter. The church they got a
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
newsletter.
yeah,
Tell you
yeah.
what's going on. And every month, Pastor Fowler, his name is Ron Fowler, he's the pastor of the church. Every newsletter, he would, pick a subject and on the back of the newsletter, pick a subject and do a summary on it, right? So 2 days into this whole thing, I go to my mailbox and I get my mail, and there's a newsletter in there. I'm reading certain things, and I turn it over, and this particular week, his subject was worry, a sign of disbelief.
Wow.
If you know that you're a child of God and you claim that you're a child of God, what are you worried about? So if you're worried, then you really don't believe what you say you believe.
Mm.
you know? And I'm like, whoa, I stood there, I read that thing over like 6, 7 times, just standing there at the mailbox. And I said, wow, that's deep. And it said, like, if if he takes care of those little birds out there that aren't even
Mm.
able to worship him,
Yeah.
what more you claiming to be a child of God? What more is he going to do for you? If your earthly father loved you the way that he loves you and would do the things that he would do for you, what more is your heavenly father going to do?
Mm.
You're playing. My mom used to tell me when I was in. She say, "Boy, you the king's kid. You the
Wow.
king's kid." One of the lines in Say Amen is "Cattle on a thousand hills."
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
I took that from what my mom used to tell me when I was a kid. She said, "Boy, you the king's kid, and he has golden cattle on a thousand hills,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's yours. That's yours.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
yours, because you're a child of God." So at that point, I said, okay, if I believe also that what you allow to come out of your mouth can guide you through this sea of life that we call, like, like you have boats, that huge ocean liners, but they have the little rudder. The thing that guides them through the ocean is that little rudder
Yeah.
on the back. You know, that's our tongue. Our rudder is our
Yeah,
tongue.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So whatever we allow to come out. So at that point, standing up there at that mailbox, I said, I want to conscientiously take the word worry out of my vocabulary, do away with it. You
Mm.
know, I might be concerned about something,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
but concern get that, that look of like anticipation on your face. Worry gets that look of like
Mm, yeah, yeah.
drainage and the how the everything. So it didn't just immediately happen.
Yeah,
It took years of constantly catching myself. Oh, I'm worried. Oh, I'm not worried. I'm not worried. I'm concerned, but I'm
yeah,
not worried. But it took years until it became like a lifestyle. That's my go-to. I don't go straight to worry.
yeah,
How do I get through this whole thing without, because that's not my first go-to. To be worried or stressed out is
yeah,
not my first go-to.
yeah,
you know, and praise God, once you figure out other avenues to go to get to a certain point, you never get to that avenue of
yeah,
worry or stress, because you're talking about something that'll drain you. Worry and stress will drain you.
yeah,
It's a killer. It's a
yeah.
killer.
And
You
that
know,
that came from Psalm 50 verse 10. That I yeah, Psalm 50 verse 10. The
Mhm.
owning I own the cattle on a thousand hills.
Thousand Hills, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's cattle on a thousand. And she tell me, say, and that's yours. That's yours. Everything, you are the king. She would tell me, you the king's kid, boy. You the
Yeah,
king's kid.
yeah.
And man, my mom was amazing. My mom and dad, they instilled, so much stuff.
Mm.
They gave me so many tools,
Oh,
to put in my toolbox through the years and through their short lives. But, they're amazing. I miss them every day.
amen. Okay, I've just a few more questions they had. He says, "Who are your musical idols?"
Mm. And I went through my period of wanting to sound like Stevie back in the day. Stevie
Ah,
Wonder, man, he was the man. And then I went through my period of wanting to sound like Donny Hathaway, you
okay.
know, and of course the man Marvin Gaye. You go through that stuff. But I think at an early age, like 15, 16 years old, I started realizing that the thing that made these people unique was the fact that they were unique.
Yeah.
When you heard Stevie, you knew without anybody telling you that's
Mm.
Stevie. When you heard Donnie, same thing. When you heard Marvin, you knew that was Marvin. And so at about 15, 16, I said, I want some people to say I want to sound like Howard.
Yeah, but
I
yeah.
want to sound I want to sound like Howard Hewett. So I started developing that. at a real early age, like in my mom's bathroom, where you just there's the bathroom at the house where there's nothing but tile in there, so you got the natural reverb, and so like I started developing that. So but to develop that with with the influences, I think you would say, Marvin, Donnie, Stevie, you know and then everybody else, some other people that you listen to. But by the time I started listening to them, I was already on my path of like developing something for myself.
Okay. Um, Another question was historically, allegedly, you hated disco. Is that true?
Oh,
Is that
you do your homework, boy. That's because but Jeffrey Daniel, from Shalamar, because we've been doing Shalamar over there,
and over here in
and
the UK, yeah, I see you come every year on the BBC. I see you and
yeah, yeah, we're going back. I think the next tour is set up for June or something like that. We got tried to take a little break, for a minute. But but Jeff hates it when I say that because we'll be doing interviews and I say I hated disco. It said, "Oh man, but to me, disco, it was that elitist type of attitude that us R&B singers have, elitist type of thing, and but to me, but really, it was like and even Shalimar fell in this category to a certain extent. Back in the day, it was like they were fabricated groups. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? And you would the thing would be you go in and do a song and throw it out there, and if it starts making some noise, then you go and put together
Oh,
a group and all that.
okay.
And that's basically how Shalimar started. But thankfully, we were able to transcend from that whole thing
Mm.
because the first song, Uptown Festival. Jeffrey and Jody weren't on there. They didn't sing. They had studio background vocalists,
Oh, Milli
and
Vanilli type thing.
and they have, well, somewhat, but not that deep, not that deep. Which the Milli Vanilli thing, and I'm not dumb because I feel for those cats because
Yeah.
everybody knew what was going on with Milli Vanilli. Everybody knew. And for them to say, the record company climbing on them to say that they didn't know, that's everybody knew. But it wasn't no big deal. It only became a big deal when they tried to get up and sing. You know what I'm saying? But they weren't singers, and
Yeah.
and there was nothing wrong with that. Don't
Yeah.
be a singer, be a dancer, and then go out and make that money. And but that's a whole nother thing. I digress, as they
Yeah.
say. But what were we saying? What were we talking about? So you made me go
No,
off
yeah,
on
no, the
another
hated.
tangent.
You mentioned about the
Oh,
hated disco.
disco.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but they went with Shalimar with Uptown Festival. It was studio background singers. This cat Gary Mumford, who sang lead, and then it started making some noise.
Mm,
So they said they wanted to put something together, but then Gary went back to the church, from what I understand, and
mm,
so then they got this cat Gerald Brown who came in and he's saying, take that to the bank. But, then they put that whole thing together and, and put it out there. But
mm.
there's some groups, there's some disco groups. When they go out there, the people that they sent out there, they weren't the people that sang on the record.
Okay.
So I had my elitist
Ah,
attitude.
okay. Okay. But has that changed? Is there any music today that you dislike? Like black music. I'm not talking about like
I don't know.
techno, but
I mean, I think everybody has a right to put out what they need to, what they feel they put. I'm not about censorship about anything like that because, just like I can say, I think these people shouldn't be able to say that. And that's a dangerous two-edged sword because then who's to say somebody else comes and say, well, I
yeah.
don't think Howard should talk about God in his music. So
Yeah.
So I don't go that direction. I do have an opinion as I think as far as certain things are concerned. I think destructive. I mean, we're dealing with so many things in this world today. Sometimes it's about, the direction that I kind of choose. And there's places for the other situation as well in a society, as long as they, kind of, I guess, you know, um, monitor it in some way if you can, if that's not under the guise of censorship.
Mm.
But I think that, I think we need it's important to give people hope,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
It always needs that. Yeah.
Yeah, because people, I mean, that's what's lacking today. And
Mm.
the young people, and even when you get into the Generation Zs, the Generation X's, and all that kind of stuff, the thing is like, the people are lacking, hope,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And when hope is lacking, man, that's a uh, dangerous place to
yeah,
be,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. Ashley Hammond says, ask Howard about the change in R&B music and will he be doing some music with new R&B artists?
Mm. The R&B thing. So you look at the R&B situation now, and then like like a friend of mine, George, God rest his soul, George Duke, right?
Mm.
He said one time, he said, Howie, you know what R&B stands for? I said, what's that? He said, replaced by. You know, everybody's trying to replace R&B with everything else, but R&B is the basis of everything. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? R&B is the basis of rock and roll. R&B is the basis of neo soul. R&B is the
Mm.
basis of hip hop. It's the basis. That's where we come from. Everything comes from. I'm as far as doing new music right now, like I was talking to somebody the other day, I just don't have very much to say right now. It's
Yeah.
like I look at and when I look at what's happening around me and what's happening, there's a lot to say, but you got to figure out how you would say it if you say it, if you do say it.
Yeah.
And I'm just enjoying the fruits of my labor, as they
Yeah.
say, and just like the manager that I hired, and we've been together like 30 years or so.
Wow.
But like, I when I first hired him, I wasn't interested in the whole recording situation because,
Okay.
record companies were into that. We're not gonna sign anybody over 20 years old.
Oh, yeah, yes,
So
yes, yeah.
so I'm like, well, I want to stay away from y'all, right? So like I would do stuff, release it to my base, especially
Mm.
you have the opportunity to do that in this, if you
Yeah.
have your social media thing together.
Yeah.
And I released it to my base and like, just kind of enjoy my personal appearances.
Mm.
I do about close to 100 dates a year,
Yeah, you do
and
travel. Yeah, you do a lot of
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, between here and overseas, and
Yeah.
man, I'm just having a good time. I'm just having fun. I'm just turned 70. You know what
Wow.
I'm
Yeah,
saying?
it's amazing how you look and stuff. It's hard to imagine.
And thank God. The one thing I think one of the main things I thank God about that is that it don't look like I thought it was gonna look.
Yeah.
You know, when I was
Yeah.
30, about 30, 40 years, 30 or 40 years old, I looked at 70. I'm like, oh man, it's gonna be like wrinkles and
Red Fox.
but that's from no stress.
Yeah, yes, you said.
No
Okay.
stress, no worry. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
yeah.
But I'll do, I have a bunch of stuff laying around that my son and I did, and a couple other people and I did. I just did it and like, had fun with it and like but there's a couple of things that we could put out. And I've been having some conversations about, with some people about, uh a little record company thing or something, but a record
Mm,
company right now would be about what kind of commitment are you putting
Yeah,
behind this
in
thing?
pushing it, yeah.
Yeah, that's not, I mean, advances, you don't do advances
No, no.
anymore. You don't do that. Like that was back in the day. And thank God I can go out and make money.
Yeah,
I can always make money. So, you know, it's that, but that if I'm gonna do some other stuff, it's just gotta hit me.
yeah.
A lot of people ask about another inspirational album, but
Mm,
those albums are basically, those definitely aren't about making money. Those are about, honoring God, and when that spirit, it had to be that spirit that
yeah.
even when I did the journey,
Mm.
because I had my what I call my Jonah syndrome, where I ran away from it
Yeah,
for a long time. It was my Nineveh.
yeah, yeah. For those who don't know, Jonah's the one who was in the well for three
In the
days.
whale's belly
Yeah.
till he did what the Lord had for him to do.
Yeah.
To
I just want to rattle off the few other questions that it has. Miss Savagnon, she's out in France, says, could you ask him about his song Masquerade and To Thee I
well,
Pray from his album Allegiances, the writing and production process. What was it like for those two songs?
on on Allegiance
Yes,
and Masquerade.
yes.
See, Masquerade is one of my what I call one of my indulgent songs. Masquerade is something like 7 minutes long, 8 minutes long, or something like that. And there's some profound stuff in Masquerade. There's like, how can we testify all the lies we told?
Wow.
That's when you thought it was safe to go. All that, man, it was like I was into some deep stuff, man. And just, but the way it's put, that's when I love sitting down and piecing things together and looking at the way that this falls with that and what you're saying and making sure that it's compatible with what you said before. And it was putting that together. Who produced that? I can't remember who produced that. Narda Michael Walden, I think.
Oh,
I can't remember. But then To Thee I Pray was, it was amazing to work on that and to, write that situation as well. I used to think that To Thee I Pray, Monty Seward and I did that, but then I realized that Monty and I didn't do that. Somebody else, I can't remember. They gave me the music and it's on the credits.
yeah.
Everybody got paid what they were
Yeah.
supposed to get paid.
That's okay.
So, but they gave me there was one of those cases where they gave me the music and I
Okay.
took it and just, you know, decided what I wanted to talk about and then put the lyrics together. That's how we
Yeah.
did. That's how I did Say Man. That's how we did Masquerade even. It was like taking the music and because I don't play anything. I don't play
Ah.
keyboards. I don't play a guitar. I play at it. I can play at keyboards. And I can, my first instrument that I learned was bass.
Okay.
But then I put that down when I was 12 or 13 years old. I could never figure out how to play bass and sing at the same time.
Okay.
You
Oh,
know what I'm
yeah.
saying? And bass being such a, syncopation type of instrument, man.
Yeah.
I look at Sting and I look at Larry Graham. I'm just
How?
amazed that
Yeah.
what they can do. So I just put the bass down. So but I don't play anything.
Mm.
So, I have to, a lot of my stuff is about, you know, like Show Me, uh, John Nettlesby and, Terry Coffey, they sent me a track of that, and when I heard that, I was like, oh man, this is like
Ah,
amazing. So then, I took it, decided what I wanted to talk about, and then put the melody together and
okay.
and I that I did that. I had just at that point when I got Show Me. I had just moved into a new crib, right?
Mm.
And I didn't have any of my equipment and stuff set up, so I had two boom boxes that recorded. Each one recorded. So I took the cassette, of what John and Terry did, put it on one boombox, recorded it onto this other
Oh
boombox
goodness, back
along,
in the day, that's
yeah,
how we make
along
it
with my
tape.
voice. Yeah, and then I put it in and then went back and so you could even layer everything.
Oh goodness.
So yeah. So
Wow.
it took about Show Me was one of those songs because a lot of times, you do songs and it's like sometimes it's like pulling teeth, man. You're trying to figure out this melody, figure out, make
Mm,
sure that this fits here, that fits there. Boom, 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 level, that balance. But then Show Me was one of those things like butter. It was just
mm. It just came
every
down.
day my imagination anticipates. And so it took about I wrote Show Me in about 4 hours, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Alex Clark says, ask Howard about the song you work with Nada Michael Warden called Save Your Sex for Me.
Woo! No, we can't talk about that. No, it's because that's like one of those because that was on the Allegiance album. That was the last album that I did
With Electra.
with Electra. And so, Save Your Sex for Me was one of those songs. My ex-wife and I worked on it. Nia.
Oh,
Nia
near
and I worked
people's
on it.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
we worked on the lyrics and stuff. Narda, produced it.
Yeah.
So politically, this song was in political turmoil at the time. So, because she wrote some lyrics, Narda, and he produced it and stuff. Okay, we'll put it on the album. You know what I'm saying? But I'm the savior. I'm the say amen man. I'm not the savior sex man. Okay. And my audience, I told and we were, if you listen to the Allegiance album, there's a tune on there called Say You Will, you
Mm.
know, and it's like Shabba Ranks type of groove. But Shinehead, the Jamaican
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
rapper
yeah.
Shinehead, he was on there, but Say You Will was supposed to be the first single from the Allegiance album. That was what Crash and I sat down because every time we would start a new project, get ready to start a new project or finish a project,
Yeah.
he and I would sit down either if I was in New York or he was here, or we'd sit down on the phone and
Hmm.
talk about, okay, what's going to be the first single of this album that you did. And then when we started, and I'm getting ready to start another project, we sit down and talk about, the direction. So it's like he and I had said, say you will. And then these rocket scientists from Electra, the heads of of the pop department and the heads of the urban department. I call them sarcastically call them rocket scientists. Okay, they come up because of the word sex because you had out at that time. I want your sex.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
Save your sex for me. What was it? Not save your sex for me. That's the other.
Does that want to
But
sex you up as
I want
well?
to sex you up.
Yeah.
I want your sex.
Yeah, yeah.
The word sex, save your sex for me. These rocket scientists like, oh, because of the word sex, this is the single we should put out.
Ah.
I called them. I was in Ohio at the time and visiting my mom, and I called them and I said that I'm the same man. I'm not to save your sex for me, man. My audience. I said my audience likes for me to take them in a sexy direction, but my audience doesn't want to hear me say the
Mm.
word sex. You know what I'm
Goodness.
saying?
Yeah.
My audience doesn't want to hear me say that. I said, I'm going to spend more time defending this song than promoting it. I said, every program director across the country that feels like they're close enough to call me is gonna call me and
Wow.
say, "What is this? What's you the same man? You're not the savior sex man." And but you know, it was they and like the pop department was in there, and I said, I asked them, I said, well, if the pop department is in there, which they've never come to the party, I had done about 3 or 4 albums with them, the 3 or 4 previous albums, and the pop department never came to the party, you know,
Wow.
but I said, now they're in the room making the decisions about this. I said, are they saying that, okay, we want Save Your Sex for Me, so we're gonna put this out simultaneously with the R&B situation. It's not gonna
Okay.
be that regular put it out and see what it does R&B and maybe we'll come to the party.
Yeah.
If they're making these decisions, are they making a commitment to say that will come out at the same time
Mm.
that that the R&B situation comes out with Save Your Sex for Me? No. I said, well, why are they even making the decision? So, but it was on them. They put it out. It was the first single that I had done that I put out with Electra since I had been with Electra that didn't make it up into at least the top 10, you
Wow.
know. And it fizzled, I think, at I forget what number, some low number, man. And it's like, and every program director that thought they were close enough to me to call me called me.
Yeah, goodness.
And like, dude, what is this? What's happening? So it was a good song in that it wasn't talking about promiscuous sex. It was
Mm.
talking about the importance of monogamous monogamy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
But
but
it, yeah,
but
no.
still, they don't want me to hear me say. They don't want to hear
Yeah,
me
it's hard
like
to.
they. Yeah, like I take you to the bedroom door, but once you, it's up to you to get into that bedroom. I don't need to go in there with you. You know what I'm saying? So,
The final, the final question that Alex had was, what was that like being called by Babyface in 95, 96 to do the reissue of For the Lover in You?
oh, for the love of you.
Yeah.
See, the way that came about was about maybe 2 weeks before we had started working on it. Kenny's Babyface's wife, he was married to Tracy
Edmund, yeah, Tracy.
Edmonds at the
Yeah.
time, and she had this record company called Yabium,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
John B was,
And
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and John and they had this artist, something Brian Green or something like that. He was from 90210. He was from
Oh,
that
oh,
TV
yeah, yeah,
show
yeah, yeah.
90.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Brian Green, yeah, yeah.
Brian Austin
Brian
Green.
Austin Green, yeah, yeah,
That
he
was
was
his
on
name.
90210, yeah, yeah.
So Tracy called me, and they were getting ready to do they were doing a listening party for the release of his thing because he was on her label, you
Mm,
know. And so they were doing a listening party. So of course they're trying to get people to come down to the listening party because they're gonna have press there. They're gonna do a big thing.
mm.
So she called me. She said, I want to invite you down to this thing. She said, you can come down. She said, Kenny's going to be there. And you and Kenny haven't seen each other in a long time.
Oh yeah, the
Come.
Dale back in Solar.
Oh, yeah. Well, because the deal.
The
Yeah,
deal, yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, man. Face used to come to I had this condo one time in this place called area called Hancock Park, in L.A. And he would come to my crib, bringing songs that he was, hustling back
Oh,
before he and LA, did their thing.
yeah.
So like, she said Kenny will be there and it'd be fun, the whole thing. So I said, cool. So a partner of mine went down and hung out and I saw Faith and we sat down, we were talking and then I was getting ready to split and then he says and Faith says, hey man, I'm in the studio, working on my next album. He said, if you want to come hang out, you're welcome to come hang out anytime. I said, oh man, thank you, man. That's cool. That's cool. So I split. And then about 2 weeks later, I flew home. I flew into LA from somewhere. I was on the road and I flew in from LA from I forget where I was coming from. And but my flight landed about 3:30 in the afternoon,
Mm.
3:30, 4 o'clock. At that time, the freeways going to, from LAX to my
Mm.
house were like parking lots. And that's the last thing I wanted to do was get on the freeway after being on in this plane for 4 hours or whatever it was. So I called down to the studio. So I figured, okay, I'll wait till the traffic dies down. I'll go to
Mm.
the studio and hang out and wait till the traffic dies down. So I called and Salambra, there was his assistant. She said, "Yeah, we're here, come down to." And so by the time I got to the studio, when I get to the studio, Salama meets me at the door. She says, "Man, Kenny wants to see you back in the office. Wants to see you when you get here. Told me bring you back there." So I went back to office, and he said, "Man, when I got in there, he said, man, he said." Me and LL Cool J have been trying to figure out, we want to do a collaboration on this album. He said we've been working on a couple of things. There was nothing that we were really stuck with, nothing that we really were digging. He said, but as soon as you and I got off the phone, he said LL comes in. He didn't even know we were on the phone, right? LL didn't even know we were on the phone. And he said, as soon as we get off the phone, LL comes in, and first thing out of his mouth is like, man, we should do a remake of that old Shalamar joint for the lover in you, right? And he said, I told him, I said, man, I just got off the phone with Howard, and he's coming down here to hang out until traffic dies down. And so we started working on it that night. You
Wow.
know, we had this cat, Bryce something, I forget Bryce.
Oh,
He's a
Bryce
young,
Wilson from Groove
yeah,
Theory. Yeah,
yeah,
he
yeah,
told me
yeah,
about
yeah,
it. Yeah, Bryce. Yeah, Bryce from
yeah,
Groove. Yeah.
yeah. He was there, he was doing something. So we start putting it together, piecing it together and stuff. And we were working 3 days. We went in and we worked on it 3 days. We had Shanice Wilson
Oh,
on
yes,
background.
she was Santa LaFace. Yeah.
Yeah, and had Shanice on there. We had Mark Wilson from As Yet, as the
Yes,
group
yes.
As Yet. He was on background,
Mark
and
Nelson. Sorry, Mark Nelson.
Mark
Mark
Nelson. Yeah,
Nelson. Yeah,
Mark
yeah.
Nelson. No, Wilson. Yeah, Nelson. Mark
Nelson.
Nelson.
Nelson. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so like after about 3 days, we had it pretty much, and so I'm saying, well, shoot, man. I'm thinking like maybe we can, I can figure out why Jody's mad about stuff and like bring her in and me, LL, and Kenny were in a meeting because I was getting ready to go back out on the road the
Mm,
next day or so. And so we had finished everything. We had all this stuff together. And I said, man, you know what would make this pop? You know, what would make this, especially publicity wise? I said, if we brought Jody in and let her do a vocal on here. And I could see Kenny's face because Jody hadn't made it, she had not made it any secret that for some reason she was mad at me. So it's like,
oh,
so like, yeah, and I said, hey man, I know what you're thinking. I said, but you know, I'm thinking, as far as like, the hook that we can use
yeah, yeah,
publicity
yeah.
wise and all that. And so I said, just get in touch with her and see if she would be willing to come in and do it. So we end the meeting. I go out on the road the next day or so, and a couple of days later, I call Salambra and his assistant. And I said, have you guys gotten in touch with Jody? She said, we reached out to Jody. Nobody has gotten back with us, and we talked to her people, and blah blah blah. I said, well, sometimes our people don't get in touch with us and all that kind of stuff. So I said maybe you should, just reach out again. And she says, well, Kenny's happy with what he has.
Ah, yeah,
He's
yeah,
happy
yeah.
with Shanice and all that. I said, but this would be, I said, y'all should reach out. You should reach out. So they reached out again. They got everybody, they got back with them. She came in and did her part, right? And did put her vocal on there. And then they said that then they were talking about it being the first single from the album.
Yeah.
And so when it was the single, I said, okay, well that means it's going to be a video, and so we can bring Jeff in. And
Mm.
I'm thinking in my mind, Shalamar reunion. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah.
And and so like you can bring Jeff in, and and got in touch with Jeff. He was still living, off and on in the States at that time. And so like, he got in touch with Jeff. He was down. He came in. It was like first time I had seen Jeff in like about 3, 4 years or something like
Wow.
that since we had split up, if I got my timeline right. But um he came in, and Hype Williams
Yeah, like
was
Hype was the biggest the music
yeah,
video director at the
he
time.
was directing the video. He was directing the video. So there was this big warehouse that they had, and so like Jeff came in. And the first time we'd seen each other in 3, 4 years, something, we sitting, we're talking, hashing out stuff, and figure, well, why did we break up and blah blah blah, and all that kind of stuff. And we were talking for about an hour or so, and then Hype comes in and he says, I just got off the phone with Jody and her people, and she refuses to come down here and shoot with you guys.
Oh,
I was like, are you okay? Okay. So we did Jeff and I did our parts in front of a green screen. And then a
ah,
few days later, Jody came in and did her part in front of a green screen. And if you
ah.
look closely to in that video, they did a real good job of
Yeah, I
meshing
wouldn't have
everything
known.
together. Yeah. So we did those parts like separately, me and Jeff and then Jody,
Ah,
So um the that's how that whole thing came about. And it was like, and the way that then it was a situation where we did the thing for Top of the Pops over in England,
in
but
the amusement park.
yeah, we shot it here at Venice Beach Pier.
But we're all
you
three
know.
of you. I saw the video, but that
we
wasn't.
were all we were all three there, all three of us were there at that. But the
But you
video,
guys
but
looked
the
happy because I watched
I,
it again this evening, and she's singing to you and to Jeffrey as
mm,
she was that staged or was
well,
any or
there there is, I think, which is very important, and everybody, there's always a level of professionalism,
wow,
that all of us have to have. The three of us had magic. We had magic on stage, and together, and even as far as like, like the what we have now, myself and
yeah,
Carolyn
Karen, yeah,
Rippey, and
yeah,
Jeffrey. I love Carolyn's vocals.
mm,
I mean, Carolyn's vocals. She has this smoky type
mm,
of voice, and soulful, and she looks great from
mm,
on the stage, and the whole thing perfect. The perfect combination for me and Jeff, and for us to do the things that we've done.
yeah,
But when we talk about the well, it wasn't really the original situation. It was like, I was the third lead singer they had.
the most
So
successful.
yeah, so like, but the combination of me and Jody's voice was
Mm,
phenomenal. It was the combination was unique.
yeah,
It had a timbre about it that was like, you know, and you can't duplicate that,
yeah.
but like, we just didn't that never came to fruition.
Were you surprised how successful this? I mean, you probably anticipated it being a hit and getting everyone's attention. The reunite Shalamar with Face. I mean, the fact
Mhm.
that the three of you were you just surprised how big the song was globally?
Well, what I didn't know at the time was that as far as the UK was concerned,
Yeah.
before that, Face never had a hit record over there. You
Oh,
know what I'm saying?
I was in America at this time, so I didn't realize it was big here. I was in
Yeah.
LA at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when they put For the Lover in You out, it was kind of meandering along, for a minute until they started announcing that it was me, Jeffrey, and Jody on there. Once
Mm.
they started announcing that it was me, Jeffrey, and Jody, and people could tell, and then they started saying it on the radio. The thing went through the roof, man. It was
Mm.
crazy. It was crazy. Over here, over there,
Yeah,
over here.
I was there when, yeah,
Yeah.
when, especially the video, and for those of us with nostalgia, we're hoping, that, oh, is this the reunion that we will hope?
Yeah.
Did you guys
Well,
think it could have happened with the
Well,
success?
that's what I was thinking about. You know what I'm saying? But once we went the stances that were taken at the time, and it gets even a little bit deeper than that. Once those stances were taken, then I said that's
Okay.
not going to happen. So um, I would even now to do something. But Jeffrey and Carolyn and I are having such a great time
Yeah, yeah.
doing what we do, and when we talk about no stress and no worry and all that kind of
Mm,
stuff, we have no stress as far
yeah,
as it's concerned. At least I don't get into stress. I don't
yeah,
get into no stress
yeah.
thing. I don't like getting on that rocking chair.
What if the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame come knocking? Do you think?
Oh, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that I think that would be an amazing thing because one of the criteria that they have, for eligibility there is that your music has to have been played, still continues to be being played on the radio for the last 20 years or something like that. And
Okay.
so we fall in that category.
Yeah.
Howard Hewett falls in that category.
Okay.
Jody Watley falls in that category.
Yeah, yeah,
So as far as like them come knocking, hey man, that's cool. That's good. We could have so let's have when we get the acceptance situation, we could have Gerald Brown come up there. That's cool. That's all right. He was a part of
yeah,
Shalamar. We could have
yeah.
Mickey Free come up. We could have, Delisa Davis and all them. But it's like, but that would be an honor. That would be
Yeah,
really, really an honor and a testament to, the things that thank God you've been able to accomplish through the years.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you, Howard, for your journey, for taking me through everything, and especially answering the questions from some of the viewers.
Yeah.
It's been an honor for me, especially to be able to, to be able to sit and listen to you. And as I said, I was one of those people who watched you on Facebook Live during the
Hmm.
lockdown
Hmm.
and drawn inspiration. And but also just the fact that you talk about, no worries and stress, and
Hmm.
physically you embody what you talk about.
Hmm.
You still look, no one would think you're in your 70s. So it's been an honor that you've had this opportunity, that I've had this opportunity to hear from you.
Man, I hope I didn't pontificate too much, you know what I'm saying?
No, goodness, no.
But
Yeah, it's been a blessing for me. I always ask my guests at the end, though, that if you were, what is your favorite movie? Because you always wanted just to get something, your all-time favorite movie.
my all-time favorite movie, man. My all-time favorite movie. Um, dude, because there's so Tombstone,
Oh, wow, Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell,
Yeah,
and
Wide
and
Earp. Yeah,
yeah, Wyatt Earp, and what's the name that played Doc Holliday? Val Kilmer. Val
yeah.
Kilmer. Man,
That was a good one. That was a good
yeah,
one. That was a
if
good
if
Wide Earp
if
one. Yeah,
if Doc Holliday was not that way, he should have been that way because
yeah,
Val Kilmer played that part. He played that
yeah.
part seriously. But that's a few good men,
Yeah, yeah. Oh, we
honoring
just missed
Rob.
Rob Reiner. Oh, what a
Yeah, Rob
pity.
Reiner, yeah, which was like a tragedy,
Yeah.
and Few Good Men is one of those, where
Oh, goodness.
you can learn the lines,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Tombstone.
Santiago was, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Tom,
yeah.
Tombstone's like, I'll be your Huckleberry. I'm your Huckleberry, you know, all that. And I remember me and Mickey Free, because Mickey rides horses and stuff,
Oh,
a lot.
wow.
And into it. So I remember one time we went to where a couple of his horses were put up and went riding, horseback riding. I had the long coat on,
Okay.
the chaps, and my cowboy hat, and like we rode all day long, just repeating
Wow.
lines from Tombstone.
Yeah, it came
Yeah.
out this, I think, a year before Wyatt Earp, which was done by Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner. Yeah,
Yeah,
It came out before the
it
Kevin
came out
Costner.
before the Kevin Costner one, but
Yeah,
I'm not a big fan of Western, but I liked Tombstone, and it was well done. It felt more,
yeah,
I really
yeah,
loved it. So I'm surprised that I haven't seen that in a while. But yeah,
yeah.
I will agree that was one of my favorites.
But yeah, you can talk about Scarface. That's another one. Scarface is like kind of crazy.
Yeah,
You know,
yes, okay.
Tony
Uh,
Montana.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Music wise, because I always ask my guests favorite movie, then favorite song. Now, not a Howard Hewett or Shalamar, but just any artist. Like, if you were to get your song and say, "This is my all-time favorite song," what?
Shoot, it would have to be the whole "I Want You" album by Marvin Gaye.
Wow.
I can't pick one song from there because all of them are like, that whole album
Mm.
was, and it was during a time when my cousin, my cousin, we had to get my car back from Ohio. I had this
Ah.
74 Monte Carlo or something like that. And the guy from Mavericks Flat, John Daniels, he flew because we had put the group together because my cousin was in the show group at first, but he got
Okay.
fired. He got fired after a while.
You're right, that man.
Yeah, he got fired, and when he got fired, I quit too, right? And then after a couple of weeks after I quit, I'm like, why did I quit? I didn't do nothing wrong. So then I went back to the group, right? And but before that, I had gone back to Ohio because me and my cousin were out here, and our way of transportation, our mode of transportation was the bus line, was
Ah.
RTD, right?
Mm.
And I remember RTD was getting ready to go on strike. And so I'm like, man, the bus line goes on strike, we're gonna be in trouble because we're gonna be stuck here in Inglewood and out here in California. You need a
You
car.
need a
You
car.
I
Yeah,
need
yeah,
a car.
yeah.
So like I said, okay, I'm gonna go. I'm a fly back. I got my dad to send me some money, and I flew back to Ohio. I said I'm gonna go back to Ohio. I'm gonna get a little job, and then I'm gonna make enough money to put some new tires on my car, on the car, and then I'm gonna drive the car out. So I went back to Ohio after I was there for about a day. John Daniels, who had, at Mavericks Flat, he called me, he said, look, we need to put this group together. The vocal coach that were working with said that the group would be great, but we need you the lead singer. And so I'm gonna fly your cousin out. I'm gonna send some money with him, some cash with him. You buy some new tires,
Oh,
and put the tires on your car, and then you drive back. Both you and your cousin drive back out here, right? So I said, cool. So I put the tires on the car, and that's all the money we had. We didn't have no more money. We had money to get food on the way. We didn't have money
wow.
to stop at any hotels or anything like
Oh,
that.
wow.
So we just drove and then on the side of the road. But the only cassette we had in the car at the time was I Want You by
Oh, wow,
Marvin
Marvin
Gaye.
Gaye.
So I know every word, every lyric, every melody,
Wow.
every nuance, everything in that thing, man. That was I Want You was probably one of the most romantic,
Mm,
erotic albums of that time. I mean,
wow.
Marvin was saying some things in there that people really did. They didn't catch up. They didn't catch on to.
Wow,
I
goodness.
want to give you some head on my mind. Give you some head on that day. Give you some head on the baby. Oh man, it was serious. It was serious.
Oh,
Boy.
goodness. Did you ever meet him?
Oh yeah, man. I met him a couple times, and the first time I met him was the year that he won the Grammy for Sexual Healing. And
Oh,
so I was, Howard Hewett of Shalamar,
okay, okay.
and then he won. We were not, I think we were nominated for something that year. And after the ceremonies, everybody went to the governor's ball,
Mm,
downtown Biltmore. And I was coming out, I was going out, excuse me, and he was coming in. And so, photographers were following him, of course, and then photographers were following me. So once we saw it, and there was like, okay, Marvin Howard, let's get a picture. Let's get a picture. Tick, click, 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 click. And I'm so starstruck
oh,
that
wow.
there are, I know that there are pictures, and I've seen some floating around through the years of like he's like looking at the camera. He's like, cause he's like feeling good. He's feeling good, and he's looking at the camera like that. And there's pictures floating around with me like with my mouth wide open, like
That is the guy.
Marvin Gaye, Marvin the man. This is the man. And we took pictures. I met him, and then I met him one other time. I think I went to one of his rehearsals or something like that. But he was a complex cat,
Yeah,
it's to
yeah.
say the least. But yeah, man, that's
Okay,
that.
so that's their
Yeah,
album. That's your album.
yeah.
Well,
I
Al
want you. Yeah, I
I
want you.
want you. Aldo Barrage, what when I think of how he sings and stuff, different are your singing styles?
Me and Marvin.
No, L.
Oh,
L.
L
Yeah,
the Barge, L the
yeah.
Barge. Oh man, L is one of the man. L is like to me one of the last purest vocalists that we have out there today, and I mean just pure voice.
Mm.
And I mean I don't really compare the two styles, but the cat to me with that whole thing was his brother Bobby.
I never. Oh
Bobby
wow, was he that? I mean, everyone a switch.
Bobby Man,
Wow,
Bobby was no joke, man. Bobby was
wow,
no joke. And L's the same thing, but I gotta put I'd have to put Bobby here and put
wow.
L right here, but it was L was just amazing. When they first got their deal, because a couple of people that were in Switch, were from Akron, Ohio.
Oh, Greg
Yeah.
Williams.
No, Greg, I forget where Greg was from, but
Okay.
Philip Ingram.
Yes, yes, yes,
Philip
yes.
Ingram, that James Ingram's
Yeah,
brother.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So,
yes.
Philip was younger. Philip was
Yeah,
younger than us. He's a few years younger than I am. But and then Eddie Fluellen, who just passed away not
yeah,
long ago. But
yeah.
Eddie played trumpet and played keyboards. But
Mm.
Eddie and I went to school. We graduated high school together. We went
Okay.
to grade school, junior high, high school together.
Okay, okay.
So like when they first got their deal, they came into town. I didn't even have a deal at that time. And when they came in, I connected with them, and when they went to the studio, when they were in the studio a couple times with Jermaine. And I mean, I used to sit and watch Bobby lay down his tracks, man.
Ah,
Whew, that boy was a beast.
yeah.
He was no joke, no joke, no joke at all.
Oh, yes, because I interviewed Greg Williams and he did say that they moved to Ohio, and that's when
Hmm.
he joined, and the band came out. Okay,
Hmm.
yes,
Hmm.
okay, and then
Yeah,
yeah,
I think the Bards, Bobby and them were from Grand
they're
Rapids.
from Grand
Grand
Rapids. So
Rapids. Yeah.
Greg is from was from Greg. They all grew up together. But when I
Mhm.
spoke with Elle, he did say um, that Bobby's middle finger, that he has more talent in his middle
Yeah,
finger than Elle has. That's what Elle said, that his brother had more talent than
man.
he. And
I'm trying to tell you, but L sit down at a keyboard and start pounding some stuff. That's what I always say, man. You know, God knew what not to give me, right? And it's like, shoot, if I could sit down at that key, I got keyboards all over my house, and I sit and still I got the three chords. But on that subject, God know, boy. If he gave me, if he like Stevie, just sit down and like
Yeah, yeah,
sit down at the keyboards and bang some stuff out.
yeah.
Man, I wouldn't be talking to nobody. I'd be like, I'd be nose up in the air. So God knew what not to give me. He said, I'm gonna let you sing, boy. You're gonna sing."
But
And
would
then,
we ever see you teaming up like how we had Keith Sweat, Eddie Levert, and Johnny Gill, or had
mhm.
Tankins? Would we ever see you teaming up with so like an L or somebody and or somebody else from that sort of era,
Well,
and then the three of you just doing some new
mm,
songs or classics and going on tours and
well, it would depend on the song, on everything. Everything depends on the song. I remember when I did the duet with Anita Baker, right? And we did When Will It Be on there.
Mm.
And when they first started talking about us getting together and doing something, we were label
Oh
mates at
yeah,
that
you're both on
time.
Electra, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so like we said, yeah, that would be cool because I respected her thing. I hope she respected mine, and but we both said it depends on the song
Oh, the
and
song.
what we come. I mean, we went through like 20, 30 songs
Oh, it's
before
not
we
that easy just to sing.
to find the one that really resonates for the both of you.
Wow.
And what When Will It Be was talking about was really relevant at that time and still is relevant now today.
Mm,
Unfortunately, again, you know, unfortunately, is still relevant today.
yeah.
But with that, it would be, okay, what's the song? What's the vehicle that's going to drive this combination? Myself, L, and whoever else. Who else would be? Who else would you have though? It's like
Um,
if we
yeah.
were to do, I thought about doing an LSB tour,
Yeah. So who'd
L,
have
light skinned brother tour.
no, no, yeah. I'm thinking who else would we get in?
I don't know.
I
I
don't know
don't
if,
know.
I mean, I don't know because Freddie Jackson is the was
I mean, I love Freddie. I love Freddie because we know we did. Me, Freddie, Peebo, and Jeffrey Osborne did a tour for a few years called Minnesota.
oh,
And is Jeffrey, we used his band, everybody used the same band. We did it did real well for the first one or two years, and then you know we started kind of waning off,
okay.
but it was good. It was a good, people still talk about it today. So
Yeah. Anyway, but no, it's no. I've kept you for 3 hours, so I have to.
3 hours, man.
Three. I told you I'm a
Well,
therapist, so
okay, I know. Dude, I should have been asking you some. Well, why do I think like this? No.
No, I told you I'm a therapist, so this is yeah. So I could keep you for another 2 hours. So if you let me, so no, I have to appreciate the fact that you kept your time and you gave me the space to and the honor to be able to talk to you and be blessed by everything. Do
Oh
we?
man,
I know
I
Shalamar's coming
appreciate it.
out in the summer. The
Yeah.
back in the tour. Anything that the fans should look out for you come 20, for you personally in
Um,
2026?
just the personal appearances. I'm not. I start back. I took some time off the last like couple months. Did a couple shows here and there, but I'll start back like January. And
Okay.
February, especially February, March, April, May, and then June. Come over there and. But just look out coming into your city, at any time. A lot of things, there's a schedule on the Facebook page. I think there's one on the Instagram page as well. But it kept up pretty well, kept up to
Okay.
date pretty well. So there's personal appearances, start looking at things that are interesting. To me right now, I think are the Southern Soul situation, all that kind of stuff. They're doing Southern Soul country, doing
Yeah, I was gonna
Southern
say
Soul,
country. Yeah.
yeah, Southern Soul or blues or whatever.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's an interesting genre of music. So, and plus the things like I said that my son and I put together that,
Is your son a producer or writer, singer, or
he writes, composes music and everything. He's got a bunch of stuff on YouTube. But he goes by Chris Hazel, Hayzel, Chris Hazel. And
okay?
alternative type stuff and stuff that he likes to kind of explore. He's great. If I always say if I was even half the musician he is, I'd be like, hey, man,
If you have the voice you have, I don't know if you need to be the musician as well. If you have the voice that you have, I think I saw a video on YouTube on Instagram where you were singing to a lady, and then she pointed to her husband. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh yeah.
You were singing to her, and she kept looking at her
Pointing
husband.
to her husband,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
Fortunately, on in the shows and stuff, we have a lot of fun and guys know nobody's ever gotten like, oh man, what are you doing?
Yeah.
No, because like I tell them, I said, man, she's going home with
He's
you.
good.
She ain't going
Yeah.
home with me.
No, no.
I'm getting her ready for you,
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I have to thank Shanna because she was my very first guest in
Oh yeah.
2020. I've
Oh,
interviewed
cool, cool,
200
cool.
people, but she was guest number one. S-
Cool,
So I have to
cool.
thank her for helping connect me with you. She's been somebody that's been of
Yeah.
support, so I appreciate her. And I know she was, she showed her skills directing that your music video and stuff, and
Hmm.
so I
Yeah, we
appreciate it.
did. We did the Christmas song. We did one of the songs from the Christmas album, and we did "To Thee I Pray." Yeah,
Yeah,
it was good.
yeah,
She's good, very good, talented, very creative. You
yes.
know, and yeah, I appreciate her a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I've kept you for 3 hours and 10 minutes, so I will let you go, and hopefully in the near future we can actually get you back again.
Oh man, yeah, another 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah, no, 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 just 2.5.
Just 2.5.
Just
Okay,
2.5.
cool.
Well, I appreciate it.
Man, I
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
you. I appreciate you, man. I'm looking at your name. I do see you on there sometimes. I saw you on there on FACC. Do you ever log in to say anything?
Yeah, this was during the lockdown when you were really talking, and as I said, that time we
Mhm.
were all at home and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I was listening in and stuff. Then I knew when you did have the issue with your IG, your Facebook
Yeah.
account and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
yeah. So
And I
it's
know
funny.
that, I know things are a little heated in the country over there, but
Mm.
we always have to be
It's
mindful what we say because, everyone can, those of us who come, I have family out in Oregon, so I don't want to
mm.
jeopardize any of my trips. So, but I
Yeah.
know we just,
And see, you just don't know how petty how petty this administration can get. You
Mm,
know what I'm saying? And that's the concern.
yeah,
It's like, as far as like free speech is concerned, they have a different kind of, idea what that's all about. So until they show exactly what the deal is, like I said, I don't go on there as often as I did before because I just want to make sure that these people ain't just totally crazy, you know.
we will, to thee we pray, though. To thee I
Yep.
pray. That's
To
what we
thee I
be saying.
pray.
Yeah. Oh, goodness.
Yep.
Thanks very much, Howard.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. It's very, very interesting. Thank you for allowing me to get all that stuff off my chest. That's a good thing.
Appreciate it. I will have a
All
good
right.
day.
God bless, man. I'll tell Sean, I'll pass your words off to Shauna.
Please,
And,
thank you.
okay.
Thanks,
God
Howard.
bless you, man. I'll
You,
talk to you, man.
thanks. Bye.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of Halftime Chat. Please remember to subscribe, share, and comment. But most importantly, why don't you become a member of Halftime Chat? We've got amazing videos, amazing perks, and being able to support the channel. But anyway, thanks for watching. Take care.
I never participated in that category.
And somewhere in between.
For even loving us, on which I did miss you with.
What was it like growing up?
She's still making an impact on 4 houses down.
I have a couple of pieces.
Trying to get this one and that one.
That works for you, but just for me,
No. Okay.
They don't understand what Jody's boys do in all spirits. Play it.
I mean, I love all different genres.